All right, I'll call to order the Tuesday, March 14th, Town Council special meeting to order at 6:36. All councilors are present. Would everyone please rise for the salute to the flag?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so the only thing we have on the agenda for this meeting, we have a committee of the whole right after, is to fill a vacancy left by Councilor Baumgartner. So first, I would like to start off by thanking Councilor Baumgartner for his long service to the town, which incidentally isn't over. He's just moved to the state level, and we certainly wish him the best of luck as he continues to represent Groton in the best way. So there's a couple ways that we can do this, so I'll just explain briefly how we're going to do that. We're going to open nominations. Councilors can nominate whoever they wish. When there's no more, the nominations don't need a second. When there's no more nominations, I'll close nominations, and then we will go down the line, and councilors will vote for the person that they are supporting. If one candidate receives 5 votes, then they will be elected. So before we open up nominations, I'd just like to say we had 3 candidates who expressed interest in filling the vacancy. They were all well qualified and are all currently serving on the RTM. They attend many events, and I would be happy to serve for and vote for each one of them. So I just want to thank them for putting their names out there, and whoever doesn't get nominated and elected today, I would encourage them to run for election in November to be seated. So with that.
Point of information?
Yes.
I just had a quick clarifying question to understand, more an incidental motion to understand the process. Just because I've received emails, 2 of the candidates that you stated currently hold an elected seat, and just for the full disclosure of the community, a couple of people reached out to me and asked, are they, to be eligible, do they already have to vacate their seat, or will they vacate it upon taking it tonight? Just to clear any.
So all 3 of them hold elected seats, and before they get seated, they have to resign from the RTM, which they can do by putting in a letter of resignation to the town clerk.
What about also, so there's one candidate that's a clerk as well, and I know that the city, John, what was the attorney's opinion on that?
The clerk portion, you can't serve on a town council if you're in an elected paid position. So prior to taking the seat, that the individual would have to resign that position.
Effective like tonight, or they start the next Tuesday? Just
It all depends. I mean, the vote is fine. It all depends on when they want to be sworn in. So.
thank you for clarifying that.
Right. And finally, I spoke with all 3 candidates, and they expressed that they were all supportive of each other, and they just wish that the conversation today would have a supportive tone. They don't want anyone to speak negatively about any of the candidates, and wish that the conversation is just positive. And I hope that the councilors here will respect that request. So with that, I'll open up nominations.
I'd like to make a nomination.
Okay?
I'll nominate Emily Norman.
Okay?
I'd like to make a nomination. Edward Jacome.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Should we state who the 3rd person was that was looking? Wasn't
No.
it Jill Rusk?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should. Yeah, I mean, it's for full disclosure, I mean. If we're
Are there any other
Are
nominations?
you nominating her?
No, I
It's
didn't
okay.
say the word nominate.
It's
Thank you.
okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close nominations. All right, any discussion? Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. I appreciate the counselors who did take the time 2 of the 3 that were interested did reach out personally, either via email, as well as some reached out to contact. I just would like to say that I did appreciate Emily Norman's ability to connectability. I think she brings, not discrediting any of the other candidates forward, I think she brings with her work with Chris, working up at the state level and doing other things. I think that she brings a strong connectability to this council. I think this council needs someone that is not currently in, part of any certain groups or are definitely not, is looking to mend the fence with other counselors. And Emily Norman is someone who has been extremely friendly to me, as well as other counselors up here. She does a lot with the Democratic Committee, and I think she would serve a great purpose. I also think it's important to make sure when we're looking for a counselor that we're looking for different district representation. We have a city and the town. We already have 2 people up here from the city. The city has its own counselors of 6. So now we have 8 people representing the city and the town. That was one of my processes in selecting Emily Norman. I think it's really important that she is from another district, and we have a diversity in our ability to make sure that the community is fully being represented. My other selection for Emily Norman, in my research with her, she is very, interested in the environment. Not saying the other candidate is not, but I think to look at large, we need to consider the vacancy that Andre Baumgartner left was voted by the community, and he is very environmentally and very protective of our wetlands and our waterways. And I felt at that time that Emily Norman could fill that position. So that was my choice at this time. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll go down the line. Counselor Kassiri,
Jacome.
Counselor Parker,
Jacome.
Counselor Franco,
Jacome.
Counselor Jones,
Jacome.
Counselor McBride,
Jacome.
Counselor Bordelon,
Norman?
Counselor Westervelt,
Norman.
Melendez will be Jacome. So that carries 6 for Jacome, 2 for Norman. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, we're adjourned at 6:44 unanimously.
Can we take a moment? Recess. Thank you.
All right, they're rolling.
Right, recording in progress. I now have a resignation from your elected position as representative on the RTM, the second district, and I will miss you. And I have a resignation, it doesn't belong to me, but I have it, of your position as city clerk, which will also miss you. But we get to have you on the town council. So if you would raise your right hand, and you solemnly swear or attest to faithfully discharge your duties as town councilor for the town of Groton, and you will follow the state constitution and the town charter as applied to our town and our government, and all other rules that the town council adopts to the best of your ability. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, I'll call to order the Tuesday, March 14th Town Council Committee of the Whole to order at 6:52.
Yeah.
Roll call. All councilors are present. Calendar and Communications, Councilor Kassiri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, welcome Councilor Jacome. I am looking forward to working with you, and we're glad to have you here. Last night, I attended the Citizens and Police Committee, where I and the other members of the committee were given a presentation about Officer McClellan's community policing position, along with her partner Chase, who we all love. She discussed the program Chase originated from, which is called Puppies Behind Bars. She described how her position as the community policing officer allows her to connect the police department to other town departments, youth engagement that she is a part of, community events, community programs, and officer wellness. Captain McCarthy went over the 6 civilian complaints the department received and investigated in 2022. And on the flip side, the department received 21 acknowledgements of praise in the year of 2022. And Captain B went over the update of the grant we received for the cameras for the emergency evacuation routes, and also detailed some license plate readers the department is demoing that have already assisted in the recovery of 9 stolen vehicles. I received communications regarding a citizen asking about Branford Manor Tenants Union, Thrive 55 Plus Community Impact Report, a Colonel Ledger School update, the Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act, the Economic Development Division report, referrals, a couple emails regarding the beautification committee topics, carbon capture, budget requests, and the no-ink aquaculture lease. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Parker.
I too want to welcome Councilor Jacome to the council now, and I received the same communications as Councilor Kassiri. I also attended the TVCCA rally on last Wednesday with our state rep, Andre Baumgartner and Christine Conley, and also Anthony Nolan, to promote early child care in the region. So that was very well attended, cold, but very well attended, and that's all I have to report.
Councilor Franco.
Thank you, and I'd like to welcome newly seated Councilor Jacome to our council. Look forward to working with you. I also received numerous emails and communications. I also attended the Citizens and Police Committee. There was much discussion this weekend on social media regarding a fence going along the Route 1 area at in front of Quonic Bridge. I want to clarify that the Beautification Committee, from the video that I've watched, was just trying to put a fence behind the Groton sign at the corner of Route 1 and 117 to frame in that and trying to make it look nice. As the bushes and the plantings are still small, they were trying to make it look nicer in that area. I would like to clarify that there was a volunteer, not a committee member, who had discussed the fence and went out and got pricing to see how much it would cost to go from Community Center all the way down to Sutton Park. There is no funding for this. The committee is not looking to go forward with this. This was simply a volunteer who chose to gather some additional information and trying to, I guess, maybe help. And it came across, I guess, in the video a little misconstrued, and that is not the case. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations to Councilor Jacome, and looking forward to also working with you, and glad you're here. I also received the same emails and communications that other councilors did, and then I joined Councilor Melendez with a fun event at the Bank and Bridge downtown in support of Mystic No Ink Library. We were able to read a story or something that was significant, and it was a fun evening. I think we had 15 people, maybe, something like that. Yeah, about 15 people read, and it was a nice fundraiser for the library, so it's fun.
Very good. Councilor McBride.
Thank you. Welcome, Counselor. Glad to have you here. Look forward to working with you. I also received the same emails and correspondence other counselors have already brought forward. Also held the Property Reuse Committee last Wednesday. Been working on a presentation for that. Also attended the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities Town Liaison meetings last Friday, and attended the Town Hall meeting with Comptroller Sean Scantlin yesterday, which focused on Seamers and the impact that they may have on towns in the future. We also will be holding the Property Reuse Committee tomorrow evening at 5:30. We're hoping to finalize a presentation, with the goal being to present to this council where we're at, hopefully on the 28th. So hopefully they can take a look at what we're working on, and we can take their comments and move forward from there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bordelon?
Thank you. I tuned into the police committee meeting. I did listen to part of it. Unfortunately, I had another commitment. I also attended the Proper Use Committee last week, as well as I zoomed into the RTM meeting as well last week. I received a numbers of communications regarding the co-op in Noank, as well as Branford Manor. I did reach out. I want to thank John Burke. I reached out to him. A resident there reached out to me regarding a possibility of homelessness and the expiration of a hotel that was no longer going to be paid for, according to the resident, by the company there. And he gave me some numbers, and I was able to get the resident immediately connected, and within a couple hours, a phone call back stating that their hotel was extended. I don't remember the exact, I think to the end of the month, John, is that correct? Or? And actually, that resident is moving on from Branford at the end of that stay. So I just really appreciate the help from our local department with that resident. I also did receive, I did get a request asking if I would come read at a TVCCA program, as well as I'll be going this Thursday to New London High School to speak. It's a presentation about Her Voice Matters for Women's History Month, and I'm excited for that event. Let's see. I did receive a lot of communications regarding defense. I did watch all the beautification committee meetings. It was addressed on 3 different occasions in the meetings, and it was stated at one point maybe phase 1, and there was a different phase, but there was, what was being miscued is the talk of a fence going up and down, and then there was someone who even held up a picture of the type of fence that could go up. But the other communication that I did receive was the way in which folks were presenting, or they felt was being presented, about the constituents in that location as needing to be beautified. Some there do not feel they need to be beautified, and we're concerned. So I did address, did field those phone calls and communications from constituents. I did speak with John Bird about that. He stated that he supported a small fence, but not a large fence. And I did reinstate to them that nothing had come before the council, even though the discussion was happening in the committee that they were concerned about. I did send a referral requesting that we look into bulky waste pickup in our town. In light of a lot of the concerns from what I gathered from constituents was that Pequannock Bridge has a huge tax rate for their fire district for trash removal. And one of the things that I remembered as a child growing up here is twice a year, bulky waste came by and people could pick it up. And I wasn't around then to know how it went away. So I sent a referral to the council, hoping I get 2 councilors to support it, to merely come up for a discussion. Doesn't mean it has to go through. And the referral stated pros and cons and cost or no cost of having bulky waste. What this would do, as some were stating, there was blight concerns and beautification concerns and other concerns in the town.
Point of order.
Was a point of order?
This is in full discussion of a referral, not in opinions and debate. It's not just stating a fact.
Okay, so this is for calendar and communications. If you have any communications with
Thank
this,
you.
just please don't discuss the agenda
Sure.
item.
And the communication I had got from a constituent concerning the blight that was being noted in Pequannock Village and areas around town, it drew me to put in a request for bulky waste. I sent that to John, and hopefully it's an affordability from the constituent. They stated that a lot of people can't afford or they don't have a truck, and to have a way to
Point of
be
order.
able to.
Continuing to debate an
Okay.
item not
Council
on an
Bordelon?
agenda.
Sure.
Just
Sure, it was a constituent's,
I understand,
Okay, correspondence. All
but
right.
just don't discuss the
Sure.
matters of the.
thank you. So the
referral.
constituent stated that they, a way would help. Can I say that?
Just continue.
Okay, thank you. Constituents stated that having bulky waste come back would be a help. So I sent that referral forward, hoping to have support. I also sent a referral forward regarding the sign that has been kind of plowed down by a vehicle at the corner of Route 1 and 117, right where the beautification fence was going to go. That is no longer there. And a concern at that time was that it never came before the council as to what could go on it. So I did send a referral stating, for economic development purposes, the sign should have more than the police station, the town hall, the town annex. It should have something like Bluff Point this way, Mystic that way, Haley Farm. People
Mr.
are
Mayor?
looking for landmarks. So I'm looking for councilor support on that referral. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Westervelt.
Thank you. I'd also like to congratulate Councilor Jacome. Look forward to working with you over the next several months and into the future. So thank you very much. I'm glad you volunteered to do this. Also, I had a lot of the same communications that all of the other counselors had. Quite a bit to read and digest, but it was all very well thought out. Also, I attended the Property Reuse Committee meeting this past week as well. That's all.
Thank you. Counselor Barone.
I did want to just recognize Eddie Jacome. I know Councilor Jacome now. Welcome on board, and look forward to seeing ways that we can work on mending this council. Thank you.
Counselor Jacome.
Thank you, Mayor. No communications as of yet, just starting now, but I expect to have some soon here. I want to thank the council for their consideration and allowing me an opportunity to serve my community. I do want to thank my family for always supporting me, my mom, my dad, my sister, my nephew, and just I couldn't do without them. Thank you all again, and I look forward to doing the people's work. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'll just say, welcome, Counselor Jacome. I look forward to working with you. I've seen you over the past few years being at basically every event and just being a really active community servant, and I look forward to working with you as you continue to grow in that process. So welcome. All right, on to the approval of minutes. I make a motion to approve the February 28th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Second, Jones?
Moved by Melendez, seconded by Jones. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously, 9 in favor. On to new business. Department of Transportation easement request, Central Ave and Ring Drive.
I can read that motion, or you want
Sure.
the presentation first?
No, you can read the motion.
I make a motion to recommend a resolution to grant the easement along US Route 1 for Central Avenue and the drive to Quonic Plains Park and Ring Drive and the drive to Grasso Technical High School, and to authorize the town manager, John Burt, to execute the necessary paperwork needed by the Connecticut Department of Transportation, DOT, on behalf of the council. I so move.
Second, Kasturi.
Moved by Parker, seconded by Kasiri. Okay.
And I believe we have a representative of the DOT here. Yeah, I figured that was you. Ludwig Pulaski.
All right, welcome. Yes, right there's fine.
Usually I have papers, unfortunately, state offices were closed today,
Right.
so I apologize.
No worries.
I'm here with my electronic stuff, so I'm saving trees. Mayor and council, thank you very much for inviting me here today to talk to you about this project. It's actually two different projects. When I sent the offer, I should introduce myself. I'm Ludwig Pulaski. I'm a property agent 2 for the acquisition and relocation section for the Department of Transportation at 2800 Berlin Turnpike in Newington. I'm here to talk to you today about what is called a District 2 project. District 2 is the project that Groton sits in. This is an upgrade to 15 different locations. 2 of those are in Groton. In this,
Let me zoom in a little bit.
That's helpful. One of the things that, the reason the department requires this, what's called a defined traffic easement, is that the town on this side of Route 1 owns the sidewalks, and actually a strip of land between the property owners and Route 1, which is a little bit unusual for those people that are not from here. So the department requires what's called a defined traffic easement, which means that we would like to upgrade the current traffic appurtenances, and also I think there's a number of, I believe we're also putting in some sway arms, pedestrian crossings, and I believe there's also buttons going, the button, what do they call those, John? It says right on the map, I can't, hold on. Like I said, if I have my map, I can actually, I can look a lot better. Spin, pull, mast arm, and pedestrian push buttons. So that's what I'm here to talk to you. Town Manager Burt asked me to come in because there were some concerns about some things that are going on, and I think I've got some answers to that, but I'd like to hear what the mayor and council has to say.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council? Councilor Bordelon?
I don't have a question yet. I just wanted the town manager to address what the concern, if he could just give a little background before we start.
I wouldn't say concern. I just know that the town council likes to ask questions. So I just want to make sure he was here to answer questions. No concerns. And just to point out, one of these is at the entrance to Grasso Tech and of course the middle school. But I reached out to the principal of Grasso Tech just to make sure she was aware. And, you know, the main thing is to avoid when school's getting out. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Councilor Bordelon?
Thank you. So this is just addressing these two sections?
Yes.
At this time?
Yeah.
Are we looking at all the sections? Because I think the connectability and accessibility of the town is really important. I know there's a lot of areas that are on state roads that do not have proper, we should be a walking community or biking community as well. So I'm just curious, why these two before others, or are they all on? Because I think, I think, what was the road, John, that I had brought up on the way to Paquonic Road? Right there at that intersection where the...
where High Rock is at?
Right there where you can go left to go to High Rock or go right to go to like Sneakers.
Yeah.
There's a light there.
You mean Trails Corners?
It might be considered that. There's actually buttons there, but no actual crosswalk painted. So there's a lot of discrepancies of state-owned, and my concern is, I think this is great, I'm all for making sure everyone's safe, but I want to make sure that the state is going to maintain their structure, that there are easements that they're going to take over by putting proper crosswalks where there's buttons, as well as putting buttons where there should be buttons. There's a lot of discrepancies throughout the town.
Councilor Bordelon, thank you so much for your question. I truly appreciate it. I think if you look here at the map, what you'll notice is that there is updates to the crosswalks as well. Usually, like I said, I apologize, I bring the maps in hard copy. I don't know if it was in your packets today.
I do apologize, it's hard to read.
There's a small version there. And if you need it, I brought the bigger version you sent. Yeah.
Is it all right if I get that?
Yeah.
So, Councilor Bordelon, which one are you concerned about?
I'm not concerned about any of the, I think I'm all for them. I'm concerned
First in the
that,
pack is Central Ave, so you might as well start there.
I just think throughout our town, I don't know why we're singling these out. Throughout our whole town, we have a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. You can be speaking to him.
So, thanks.
Yeah.
This talks, the map that comes, this is what I send, and I usually bring some for everybody. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, state office buildings were closed today.
No worries.
So, as you can see, the crosswalk is being upgraded. There's a proposed pedestal and mounting pedestrian buttons. They're going to be putting an apron in here and an apron in there, okay? We're going to reconstruct the sidewalk, and there's another proposed pedestal in this point. What I was talking about in terms of the strip that the town owns, it's this strip right here. So this is Route 1, as we know it. The sidewalk that goes along the Paquonic Bridge housing stuff is all along there, and that is actually town property. Does anybody else? Let me see.
No, I think that's-
It'd be good to have you, though, kind of say the same thing, but pointing at the screen if you could, so other
Yeah.
people can, yeah.
Yeah, so,
thank you.
all right, no worries.
And make sure you grab a mic, too, when you pull up with you. Or you can just take mine otherwise.
Where's Kelly Clarkson?
John, are you able to make that a little bigger, perhaps?
So,
It's all the way on my screen.
Thank you.
yeah, if you wanna, John. No, this one right here twice. Yeah, there.
There we go.
So people can read it. So as I was explaining to Councilor Bordelon, this is the strip that the town owns. And this is why the department needs to acquire its easement, its defined traffic easement for this, for these appurtenances is what we call it, but it's the stuff, if you will, to kind of make it a little simpler. And it's a little difficult on here. It's like right in there, and right in there. And there is two pieces. There's a 2,750 square foot defined traffic easement that the department requires as part of this project. And also a right to reconstruct the concrete walk here and here, as I talked about. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I still have time, okay. I appreciate this. I know overwhelmingly in this area through the years, there wasn't even crosswalks in this section at one point, and the amount of folks that were getting hit in this area coming from PQ over to stores and things has been a bit of a tragedy for decades. So
That-
I'm sorry?
Nothing.
Council Bordelon, you have the floor.
Any improvements to put in any type of safety mechanisms, I think is very important. So Central Ave is coming out of PQ, is that correct? Paquonic Bridge?
Well, yeah, and this is going to be, and the first map we sent, for some reason, it said Bellows Park, but that has also been corrected. I think I sent you the correction, right?
I don't think I've received the correction yet.
Okay, I believe I sent it to Lisa, but I can send it again. That's okay. So, yes, is the short answer.
Where is the store and location to this map, that strip mall there?
Somewhere down in here.
Somewhere down here. And the two buttons and sidewalks will be where again in relation to that? Right here, okay.
Right in here.
Okay, right, which is okay. Yeah, no, I think this is very important, and I hope that we continue to look for discrepancies throughout the town. As I stated over on Paquonic Road, there's a lot of, and at the corner of Rainville Hill down there, which is a state road, there's buttons, but there's no sidewalk where the button is, and there's no crosswalk painted. So I just hope as we install these things that we maintain them, and I hope that maybe you could go back and also ask for maybe the folks to come out and check our whole town for proper consistencies. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly do that.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to tell you, I'm here on behalf of the Rights of Way Department.
No, I understand.
And I'm an
Thank you.
acquisition agent. Not to say that's not my job, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I can do that. But the other thing I can recommend is that if you talk to your district folks up in Norwich, they can generally, and I'm sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
I sent it already to the town manager, but I just
Yeah.
hope that they're going to be maintained. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and that is why we need the easement, is for the maintenance. In fact, I think it says right here, easement to install and maintain traffic devices and appurtenances thereto acquired.
Very good, thank you. Any other councilors? Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the last year, the state has worked on both of those intersections on the other side of the road, the opposite Central Ave going into Paquonic Plains, and then, I don't know what the road is coming off of the Grasso, but that one. And there was sidewalk improvements there and all the same things you're talking about here. Did we need to issue easements for those?
I am not sure, because I didn't look that deep into the project. I stayed on this side of Route 1.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that the town owns the same strip. This original strip was bought from the federal government at the time when they sold the quote-unquote temporary housing down there. Because that's when they divided the Pequannock Bridge housing.
Is it typical for a project like this to do one side of the road one year and the other side of the road the next year? Is that?
It's not atypical.
It's not atypical. So that you're having to come back and, I mean, you may have done, I can't remember last year.
This is, yeah, and this is part of a federal project, so.
Okay. And when do you anticipate construction to start on this?
Well, that's, I'm going to tell you, this is very tentative, so, because a lot can happen, because there are 15 locations, I think, in 7 or 8 towns as we go through these. So Groton is one of many. At this point, notice to proceed is looking at late this year with the beginnings into the spring of next.
Okay, okay, great, yep, great, thank you, I just.
Yep.
Okay, one second.
Should I drop down to the next map?
Sure.
I think Councilor Franco's got her finger up.
Counselor Franco?
Thank you. So this is the one across from Pequannock Plains, correct?
Correct.
This is not the one across from Bridge Market, correct? Right, because the one across from Bridge Market is not Central Avenue, it's Virginia's Court, correct?
Right across from Farmington's.
Yeah.
Right.
So my question is on this, if we're basically giving the state an easement for our property, but it still would be maintained by the town, is that correct? We wouldn't be giving
You mean like mowing type things?
anything, like plowing, shoveling, everything that the town does now would still, right? It's just giving you the permission to go on this
For the
property.
traffic appurtenances,
And do the
yes.
traffic situations.
Traffic appurtenances.
And is there, because I believe, I mean, just getting over to Pequannock Plains from Pequannock Bridge, there's a lot of children that use that area. It's just going to be a push button and that's it, and you're going to have a crosswalk. Is that what you're saying?
That's what the plans are showing you.
The plans are showing. And is it just going to be a
This is a
typical
safety
crosswalk?
upgrade. This is part of an upgrade throughout the whole eastern part of the state.
I know. I'm just seeing that some places, when there's children at play nearby, they have other notifications to tell people to slow down in that area. And with the crosswalk there, I was just curious if there would be more than just simply a push the button and have the light turn red. But that's all this is, right?
I believe there is also cross and don't cross signs.
Okay.
I believe this is to bring it into compliance with current federal statutes. is
All
my
right, and
understanding.
I do know the one down by Ring Drive there, they had, I had helped a resident down there gain the noise that would comes out of the traffic, the crossing walk, because their child was going blind. And so is that still going to be on these?
I'm not sure, but if you have the town manager send me an email, I can throw that out there and get better design specifics for you.
All right, I was just curious about that one, because I do believe it was done down at Ring Drive
Yep.
previously, and I just want to maintain the same.
I am not
at the very
completely
minimum.
sure. I could tell you that I think they're going to be the same, but I'm not sure what they're putting exactly in there.
All right, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Bordelon?
Thank you. I too was going to bring up the ADA compliance. I know that a lot of the curbs have the texture when you step off. Is that going to be part of the, so people that are walking, they can feel the edge of the curb? That's where you put that jagged edge where you show?
That is my belief. That's what that apron we were talking about earlier, yeah.
Okay. And I can agree with Councilor Franco with the sound there, to be fully compliant if we're going to make this type of change. And think of ADA compliance, the sound is very important for visually impaired, as well as the.
I would be
apron.
surprised if it wasn't going to be in there, but I do not know for a fact, so I don't want to tell you something that I don't know to be completely 100%.
And I'll follow up.
Counselor Jacome?
Just had one quick question.
Sure.
What's the-
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, thank you. Just what statute exactly are the guidelines that you're following
In terms of?
in terms of certain signage?
Standards do you have to meet?
Well, it depends. Are you talking about for the acquisition, or are you talking about for the crosswalks? Crosswalk. I believe, I'm not sure in the crosswalks. It might be ASHTO, I think, but I've got to look that up. Hate to use acronyms, sorry to do that to you.
Any further discussion or questions?
Well, I do want to, when this all finishes, I want to talk about what the town manager's concern was that he voiced to me, because I've got some input. I was able to get that question answered prior to, but I wanted to make sure that we addressed your specific concerns.
Okay. Counselor Kassiri?
Just so Counselor Jacome knows, in our packet, the statutes are listed under the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation section. Sorry, I'm trying to find the page of our packet. Thank you, 17.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I was going to say, I thought it was in there, but
It is, yep.
I don't have, like I said, a can of my paper. Being an old guy, I need paper. I hate to say it.
All right. Seeing no further discussion?
Like I said, I wanted to talk about
Sure.
what the town manager had.
Sure.
So the town manager's assistant brought to the department's attention that they were concerned about the schools letting out at the specific times during construction, because that is a pinch point, starting at Grosso Tech and then going all the way down to really Town Hall at that point. I think we all know that. One of the things, what is standard, is we have notice to contractors of when the contractors can specifically do their work. The agency standard, or the department standard is the contractor will not be permitted to perform any work which will interfere with the described traffic operations on all project roadways as follows, Monday through Friday, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Based on the town manager's concern, the department, if you so wished, might be able to change that to 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday to help with the layout, the let out of school. If you wished, we can then bring that forward for you.
I don't know when schools get out.
Is that the high schools get out just after 2?
Well, that, right, Grosso Tech would be middle school and Grosso Tech.
Right. And then the middle school, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Grosso Tech lets out at, according to the town manager's assistant's email, Grosso Tech lets out at 2:03, Groton Middle School 2:30 p.m.,
Okay.
and Fitch High School at 2:20.
Okay.
And they're all using that stretch of road.
Right.
Okay.
So yes, it'd be good to have 2 p.m.
Huh?
It'd be good to have 2 p.m. then.
If the council would like to ask for that, I can bring that to department and see if we
Okay.
can accommodate that.
I'm seeing consensus for that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Do you guys have any other questions, or?
Any other questions? All right. Seeing
Town
none?
manager?
I'm good.
And yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to have the town manager's office contact me, and I can get answers for you. If you want to meet again, I'm certainly willing to do that, or do whatever needs to bring the process forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously, 9 in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too. On to the annual comprehensive financial report.
1 second.
Would you like me to read it?
Sure.
Make a recommendation, to recommend a resolution to accept the file in the FYE 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, ACFR, the auditor's report, and the management letter. I so
Second.
move.
Moved by Franco, seconded by Westervelt.
And we have Vanessa Rosito online to present the audit.
Welcome.
Can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
We'll fix the audio. I think it's just a volume thing.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I do have a presentation. I don't know if you all have it there or if you want me to share my screen.
We have it in front of us, but if you could share your screen for those at home, that'd be nice.
Okay. Okay, can you see the presentation?
We can, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I'll just go through the presentation and then I'll entertain questions at the end. That's probably the best way to do it, if that's okay.
Very good.
Okay. As far as the agenda tonight, I'm going to talk about the terms of the engagement, go over some high-level financial highlights, go over the federal and state single audit, the governance communication, and then lastly, talk about some upcoming GASB pronouncements that the town is going to have to pay attention to. So CLA was engaged to express opinions on whether the basic financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also expressed an in relation to opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and the schedule of expenditures of state financial assistance, which is basically the federal and state single audit. We express an opinion on compliance related to major federal and state award programs. We provide a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grants. And lastly, provide a report on internal control over compliance related to major federal and state award programs. So as far as the results of the audit, we have issued a clean opinion on the town's financial statements. The technical term is an unmodified opinion, but it basically means that everything in the financial statements is fairly stated in accordance with our accounting standards. We did issue in the internal control report a material weakness due to the fact that there was a restatement in the financial statements for a premium on a bond anticipation note that wasn't recognized in the prior year. So unfortunately, because it was in the capital improvement fund, the materiality in that fund is very small. And so it wasn't a large amount, to be honest with you, but because the materiality in that fund was very small, it was material to that fund. And because it was a restatement, it meets the definition of a material weakness. So I can answer questions about that later. As far as the federal single audit, we issued a clean opinion on the major major federal programs, typo there, and no compliance findings or significant deficiencies in internal control. So clean opinion on that, and also for the state single audit, clean opinion on the state programs that we tested, and no compliance findings or significant deficiencies in internal control. And I have a little bit more detailed information later on in the presentation on the two of those. So just starting to go through some of the high-level schedules, high-level analysis of some of the schedules in the town's financial statements.
So this slide presents the full accrual amounts in the town's financial statements. So in your financial statements, there's actually 3 different bases of accounting. There's the full accrual basis, which is presented here, which includes all of the long-term assets and long-term liabilities of the town. You have modified accrual, which is what, kind of the day-to-day, that's what you're used to working with. So there's no capital assets, no debt in those financial statements. And then lastly, the budgetary basis. So this is presenting all of the funds, if you will, all of the government funds aggregated together and then brought to the full accrual basis of accounting. So as you can see, there's capital assets here and long-term debt. And also I should mention that this statement is presented in thousands. And you can find this statement in the management's discussion and analysis, just kind of a summarized statement. So just looking from last year to this year, really no significant changes in current assets, which is the first line on the statement. The second line is capital assets. There's a slight increase due to some construction in progress that the town had. The next section, which is deferred outflows of resources, that is related to various pension and OPEB expenses that are recognized over a period of time. So it's brought onto the balance sheet rather than recognized in the revenues or expenditures. Looking at the liabilities, liabilities did increase from last year. You did have a $30 million increase in your net pension liability and probably about a net $15 million increase in your bonds payable. You did issue some bonds, but of course you paid some down, so it was net about $15 million. And then your OPEB liability decreased slightly, about $2 million. I'll talk about pension and OPEB also on a later slide. The next category, similar to deferred outflows of resources, you have deferred inflows, same thing. Pension and OPEB expenses are brought onto the balance sheet and amortized over a period of time rather than recognized. So overall, your net position for the town did increase from $223 million to $234 million. And then this slide is showing the modified accrual basis of accounting for your various major funds of the town. So the general fund, your ARPA fund, capital improvements fund, and then the smaller funds of the town are aggregated together into this fourth column, which is titled non-major government funds. So for June 30th, 2022, just looking at the first column, the general fund did have an increase in fund balance from last year to this year of $3.886 million. You did have a bond premium, so you did issue long-term debt, and the debt was issued with a premium, so you did have about a $1.6 million premium in the general fund. The ARPA fund is the ARPA grant that you received last year. You received a little bit more of grant revenue, $50,000, and then interest on investments. So there was revenue in that fund of $53,000, and then you're starting to spend the ARPA grant, so there's about $50,000 in expenditures. So you didn't have a fund balance last year because it was just on the balance sheet. You had cash and deferred revenue last year, but you're starting to spend it, in 2022. So you'll start to see a fund balance in that fund now. The capital improvements fund had an increase in fund balance, so you had a negative $10.5 million fund balance at the beginning of the year, and you had an increase, so you only have a $98,000 deficit in that fund. And so The main reason for that increase is you did issue bonds of about $23 million. So in governmental accounting, when we issue debt, it's actually counted as revenue. It's not on the balance sheet like in commercial accounting. The non-major governmental funds had an increase in fund balance of about 1.7 million. So in total, your total governmental funds had an increase in fund balance of about 16 million from last year to this year. And then this is showing your pension trust fund and your OPEB trust fund. These are the funds that are used to set aside assets to fund the pension and the OPEB liability. So just as every other town, there was a decrease in the trust fund due to the market conditions last year. So you'll see that in the pension trust fund, you had contributions both from the town and from plan members of about $6.3 million. You had a negative fair value effect of the decrease in investments of about 19 million, and then benefits paid of 10.5 million. So there was a decrease in your net position of about 24 million in the pension trust fund. And then same sort of thing for the OPEB trust fund, contributions of 4.6 million, negative fair value effect of 2.7 million, and benefits paid of 3.2 million. So change in net position of 1.3 million negative for the OPEB trust fund. And then just some more information on the general fund. Total fund balance in the general fund is 37.57 million. There's various buckets that the fund balance is in. So the non-spendable piece is 3,000. That's probably prepaid expenses or inventory. There's an assigned category for fund balance that's 5.44 million. 4 million of that is used to balance the 2023 budget, and then there's encumbrances of about 700,000, an amount set aside for revaluation, and an amount for technology. And that leaves an unassigned balance of $32.1 million. And property tax collections were 99.22% in the current year compared to 99.28% in the prior year, so about the same. As far as the budget or the budgetary basis of accounting, revenues came in 5.56 million greater than budget, and expenditures came in $1.47 million less than budget. So that's positive return to the budget of about $6.7 million. As discussed before, the net pension liability increased $30 million, so that's $36.9 million. As I talked about, the main reason for that is just the negative market conditions in the assets. And then the net OPEB liability decreased 2.4 million to 35 million. So although you did have negative effect on your assets, the total OPEB liability did decrease. So your net OPEB liability decreased last year. And then on to the federal single audits. For federal awards, Groton spent $14.75 million during the fiscal year. We tested the special education cluster and the Education Stabilization Fund grant, which is an ARPA grant. Again, we issued a clean opinion on the compliance of those programs, and we did not have any compliance findings or significant deficiencies. So clean opinions on both of those in the federal single audit. And then similarly for the state, Groton spent about $41 million in state programs. We tested town aid road, bus operations, payment in lieu of taxes, and municipal grants and aid. And again, clean opinion on the compliance for the major programs and no compliance findings or significant deficiencies in internal control. We are required to communicate certain things to those charged with governance, which is this board. There was a letter issued along with the deliverables, but I'm just going to summarize some of the highlights in these couple slides. We did adopt a new standard, a new accounting standard this year, which was GASB 87, the lease standard. So this standard required municipalities to capitalize really their operating leases just like you would a capital lease. So the town did a very good job of analyzing all the leases that they had. The town did their leases and the Board of Ed did their leases. And when it came right down to it, it really wasn't a material effect on the financial statements. So we did record the effect as a past audit adjustments, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But the town is still going to have to evaluate this amount going forward every year, because if there is a material lease going forward, it is going to have to be brought onto the balance sheet. Also, there's various estimates inherent in the financial statements, so we are required to do additional procedures just to make sure there's no management bias, that management is not trying to affect the results of the year. So the useful lives of capital assets are used to calculate depreciation. The allowance for uncollectible receivables management estimates based upon historical information. Pension and OPEB liability are estimated based upon management's assumptions, but you do utilize an actuarial firm for both of those. Pollution remediation, you do utilize a third party for that amount, and similarly for the medical claims, heart and hypertension and workers' comp claims incurred but not reported, you do utilize a third party. So we looked at all of these estimates just to verify that they were reasonable with respect to the financial statements. We did not have any disagreements with management. Management did not consult with other accountants for a second opinion. We did not have any difficulties in performing the audit. And we did have some past audit adjustments. We call them uncorrected misstatements. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, on that grid, if you will, the effective GASB 87 is recorded there. You have some litigation with your fuel cell with their assessment. So that liability was not, per the attorney's letter, it was larger than what the town had recorded. So that there's a little amount that we had to true it up for. But again, it wasn't material, so we didn't have to change the financial statements for that. And then also, we had a past audit adjustment for some construction in progress that was written off in previous years and not capitalized. And lastly, we are independent of the town. All right, so the next two slides are the upcoming GASB standards in the next couple of years. So for this upcoming fiscal year, there's 3 standards that could affect the town. I don't think 91 and 94 are going to have any effect because the town does not have any conduit debt. And the town, to my knowledge, doesn't have any public-private or public-public partnerships. So if you do in the future, we'll have to look at this standard. But the big one this year, similar to the lease standard, is Statement 96, which is subscription-based IT arrangements. So this standard is requiring municipalities to capitalize software subscriptions. So just like the town and the Board of Education had to inventory all of their leases last year, they're going to have to do the same thing for all the software arrangements. And I feel like the Board of Education might have more exposure to this one than the town. And then in 2024 and 2025, there's a couple other standards. The omnibus standard is just generally, 5 or 6 things that are cleaning up previously issued standards. Statement 100 is accounting changes and error corrections. And then in 2025, new standard on compensated absences. So the town will have to analyze these and see if they have any effect on the financial statements. And that is my presentation, so I will open it up to any questions that anyone has.
Thank you. Any, Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much, Vanessa, that was great. I just have a couple questions. Some of them you've already answered. One of the things that I read through this is I noticed this different numbers that are called the same things in different places have different amounts, but I'm assuming that's because you have 3 different ways that you're counting. Is that
Yes,
correct?
just to make it extra confusing for everyone. Very nice of them. Yes.
If on the financial statement, on the slide, it's, I guess it's page 8 on the slide, on regular page 241. In our packet, so it's 241, on your slide is number 8.
Okay, yep.
So I just want you to just explain to me, so I know how this works. In the revenue over under expenditures, we're $7 million in the negative. And I just don't understand, because everywhere,
I believe that's 7 million positive.
no, it's
In the total column?
in the far column,
Yes, so,
just how that works.
well, I mean, it's not really showing the whole picture because there's a section below it, which is other financing sources and uses. Again, it's just a government term. So there's certain revenues and expenditures that are in this section that also have to be considered in the total. So really, the total is the positive 15.9 million.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's just sort of midstream that happens.
that's right.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
yep.
The other question I have has to do with our overall statute debt limit that the town can have, which is $762,792,000, which is based on 7 times our revenue. And our revenue, if I look at the same financial statement, looks like it's 98 million. So 1/7 of that total debt level is 108 million. I'm just wondering where that number is in this document. So the same financial statement and on page 59 of the book. So we have a total amount that we would never probably go to, but 59, this number. But it gives us the limit, and that number is based on 7 times our revenue, which would be, according to that number, would be 108 million, but our revenue is 98 million. I'm just wondering, is there somewhere in here where that number came from, what it's based off of?
So this is a state of Connecticut calculation, if you will. So I don't know if I think the ACFR, the financial statements, is in your packet, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a schedule of debt limitation on page 155 of the financial statement. It's table 11. And you'll see that's how, the whole reason for this table 11 is to calculate this 7 times the base. So you can see the total tax collections at the top. And then.
I got it. Okay, I see it.
Yeah, so, it's scary to me that, and I get this question all the time, it's scary to me that you could go up that high. And, I feel like this could be one of those antiquated state of Connecticut calculations. But I don't know that I would pay that much attention to it, I would probably tell you to talk to your financial advisor and bond counsel and, talk to them about your, how much debt that you should have.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging going anywhere near that number. I'm just trying to understand our total revenue that the town takes in, and that's just the number that results from that number. And I'm just was trying to get an accurate, what is our total revenue and where is it in this book? But you've pointed it out there. So it's just made up of several things that it's hard to sort of figure out where that comes from. So
Yes.
okay,
It's a prescriptive state of Connecticut form.
okay, all right. I think that's all I had. Every other question you have answered as you walked through this. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McBride?
Thank you. This is a terrific presentation. Thank you for this. And I don't have any questions. I just have a couple comments that I think would be helpful for the residents to see how strong the financial position is of Groton. First off, the fund balance on page 241 is 32% of the 142 expenditures. And the reason I point that out is because that's over 20%. I think it's important we take that into consideration when we go forward during the budget, because it's possible we may be able to utilize some of that fund balance, as we did this past year, to offset and decrease the mill rate. The other thing I wanted to point out, because people ask all the time how departments do, and I think it's important, on page 130, for those residents in this package, it's a good summary of the budget to actuals for each department, and you'll see there how the various departments did compared to the budget. As an example, the police were under budget, $166,000. The Board of Ed was under budget, $247,000, which leads to my point about the non-lapsing fund. They would, if that non-lapsing fund was set up, they would be able to utilize those funding dollars for future expenditures. So just a good point to look at the budget, and just want to let everybody know that fund balance is pretty healthy from what I can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bordelon?
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. There was that one area that you said you were going to go back to with the question. Let's see if I remember the page.
Yeah, it was probably, I didn't know if you had any more questions about the material weakness.
Yeah, let me see if I it was that one discrepancy that you said.
Yeah, it was on
237.
Yeah.
The material weakness. Could you just address that one further?
Yeah, I mean, it's, we don't have a choice, basically, when there's an adjustment in a fund that's material to it, we have to call it a material weakness. So the term is the connotation is very negative. And it's unfortunate that it occurred in this fund because materiality is very small. But, I don't think it reflects at all on the competencies of the finance office. There was no management letter this year. So, again, we don't really have any leeway. It's kind of a, black and white thing, so.
And is there anything that we can do to strengthen that weakness?
I think, we just have to pay more attention to when a bond anticipation note is issued, it more often than not lately has a premium associated with it. So that premium also is on the balance sheet. So the premium just has to follow the bond anticipation note as it goes through any kind of long-term financing or if it's paid off. So I think, the finance office just has to pay more attention to the amount.
And those remarks were sent forward to them?
Yes, yep.
And for looking at our overall rating, and we start looking and giving, they start giving us grades and stuff, after going through this, how do you think we stand?
That's a very open-ended question. I don't know that I can really give you a rating.
I'm not looking for a rating based on this information.
Okay.
Compared to our previous years, how do we stand as far as our evaluation from previous years?
I mean, I think both the town and the Board of Education do a great job of assembling everything that we need. I know there's been a lot of turnover, just like everywhere else. So I know it's hard lately to find adequate staff. So they're, very responsive, both the town and the Board of Ed. Like I said, there was no management letter this year, so I think the town is, when we do give a management comment, they want to correct it, they want to do better, so I think that's great.
All right. And then my next question is to the town manager. Looking at these GASB standards, when do we plan to implement 96?
I would have to talk to the finance director.
Okay. And is there any reason that we shouldn't move forward in implementing 99, 100, and 101 sooner than the 2024 and the 2025?
Well, that's entirely up to the finance director. That's not something the town council should dictate. She'll do it when it's the appropriate time.
I'm not looking to dictate, I was just wondering if
Yeah,
that's...
she can talk on it when she comes
And what
in
will that be
sometime.
as a liability cost? I mean, how will we incorporate these standards? Like when will we start, for the one for 2023, since we already have, we have to have that by December?
So the one for 2023, you should really start now.
Right.
Inventorying all the software agreements.
Okay.
Because it does have to be implemented for June 30th, 2023. So we typically come in to start the audit in September, October.
Yeah.
I mean, that's both the town and the Board of Ed did the inventory and the calculation of the leases themselves. So I don't know what the inventory is going to look like. There's various, assistance that you could get from various software. We have a package. I know there's a number of third parties that other municipalities use. So I think the first step is just to get your arms around what you have.
Okay, thank you. And then the 2024 and the 2025, are those also due in the June of those years?
That's right, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Could I just to ask, has I assume the Board of Ed's up to date, their finance director on these GASBs? I just want to make sure they're fully aware.
I mean, we've talked about it with him, but, and I feel like these standards just come flying at us every year, so I'm sure they'll be fine, but it's our intent to meet with all of our clients, in the next couple of months, just to kind of remind them and get them on track, so yes.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Franco?
Thank you. So as I read the report, this is, the report was from June 30th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
And in most every audit, there are some blemishes in there. Especially with a size of a municipality this large, is that correct? Corrections, management comments and such. Is that correct?
That's a pretty broad statement. So I don't know how to answer it, to be honest with you.
Have you seen, in majority of the audits you do, other corrections in other municipalities?
I mean, every municipality is different. So, there's management comments, there's material weaknesses, there's significant deficiencies, depending on the situation.
Thank you. And Groton was awarded the GFOA award for Certificate of Achievement for their accounting practices. Is that correct?
They were awarded that for the fiscal June 30th, 2021 audit. As far as I know, the finance office has submitted the June 30th, 2022 to the GFOA for an award. They probably won't find out for a couple months if they received it.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments. It was very informative, and I think that we did very well in this audit then, from my perspective. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously, 9 in favor. Thank you. On to Groton Housing Authority update.
Well, thank you for having us here tonight. We're getting organized here. I'm Bob Frank, Chair of the Groton Housing Authority, and with me tonight, from left to right, Joseph Green, our newest member, Nancy Codian, previous Chair, Rob Capoletti, our Executive Director, and Denise Tavares, our new Vice Chair. So with that, Nancy, Rob, and I are going to go over who we are, what we do for the community, and then Rob is going to take a deeper dive into affordable housing funding and his experience of doing that for 20 years in Connecticut. So if we could have slide number 2. Oops. Sean. There we go.
You have the controller there.
Yeah.
She's in control.
Yeah.
Denise
Okay.
is in control.
Okay, so we were established in 1957 by the town of Groton in accordance with state legislation. We're not new in town, we've been here for 66 years. As a state program, we are not connected to any HUD properties in Groton. The commissioners are all volunteers and serve for 5-year terms. I just want to back up a little bit. Our resident commissioner, Charlotte Cookson, she was elected by the residents of Pequot Village and Grasso. She's not here tonight, she's watching from home from television. But the 5 of us you appointed. And we serve for a 5-year term. So with that, we'll move to slide number 3. And this is from our mission statement. If you just take a second to read it, I'll hit on the key words. We operate and develop housing programs at acceptable standards, at affordable costs, with less subsidy from public resources, focusing on social inclusiveness and independence. So we're going to hit on those tonight as we go through our slides a little bit. So we go to the next slide. There we are. Okay, we have a total of 174 units, apartments at 2 sites. That building in the picture is from 1976 and contains 8 apartments. And as you can see, it's been 37 years since we've added an affordable apartment in Groton. We have, the Housing Authority. And we'll talk about that tonight, what our plans to remedy that are. So if we go to the next slide, historically, we've had a small staff. We operate under the oversight of the State Department of Housing and the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, CHAFA. CHAFA oversees our operations, approves our rents, inspects our facilities, sets our accounting practices, and maintains the rules of good practice for state-funded housing. Our jurisdiction is the entire town of Groton, river to river. The shared services agreement with the MHA, the Meriden Housing Authority, includes a part-time executive director, administrative help, maintenance staff, and equipment assistance, all of those when needed, plus a part-time accountant. As an authority, the GHA is not an IRS 501c3 nonprofit. However, CHAFA accounting rules dictate that we do not make a profit. All of our net revenue must be reinvested back in our properties in Groton. And with that,
So we currently have, are we on to slide 6? We currently have 164 residents, and 59 of them are on state rental assistance. Our residents are low and moderate income individuals and couples, and as well as younger residents who qualify under Social Security disability. Our apartments come in 3 sizes. I always say they come in 3 sizes, small, smaller, and smallest. But they're really 1 bedroom, a 1-bedroom double, and a studio.
The apartments range from 340 square feet, think about that, to 520 square feet. Except for our 16 newest apartments at Pequot Village, which are 685 square feet. The base rents range from $350 to $550 per month, based on the size of the apartment. So we're very fortunate to have a highly qualified property manager for these two campuses, actually, Jamie Lee, who not only has a business degree, but has a master's in management and information technology. She continues to stay up to date on Chapman courses as well as the very complicated tax credit program. She functions as our rental agent. She oversees the maintenance for both buildings and the grounds on both campuses, and works with our accountant and handles all GHA administrative things, business. Those new apartments at Pequot Village, which came online in 2021, are something that we are really very proud of. They were designed for maximum energy efficiency through the use of passive house design principles. They featured geothermal heating and cooling, solar roofing, Energy Star rated appliances, LED lighting, and low water use plumbing, to just name just a few of the energy saving features. All in all, I love this. All in all, these two buildings may have the lowest carbon footprint of any building in Groton. We're not sure. While apartments are small, each property has a community center for socialization, laundry facilities, and a small kitchen. There are comfortable chairs, sofas, game tables, and large screen TVs, and residents use these facilities for bingo, family gatherings, and holiday get-togethers. And our monthly board meetings are held in these spaces on alternate third Wednesdays, and you are all invited to attend. We have a resident services coordinator who is minimally funded with the state grant. She is in direct communication with the residents to help arrange transportation to appointments. She also helps the residents with state paperwork required to meet annual qualification for residency. And she is our liaison with Town Human Services for energy assistance, holiday gift baskets, and also with Thrive 55 for socialization. We partner with a number, and that's why we wanted to put these all up here, with a number of organizations that support our residents, helping them maintain independent living. We are not an assisted living facility, and therefore it's so important for us to have this resident service coordinator coordinating, actually helping the residents make connections with all these services that are available to them.
Okay. All right, so, thank you, Nancy, thank you. Can we just go back to that slide just a minute? I did want to just camp there for just a moment. There were a couple of things. Groton Human Services, we work with them on energy funding, help for our residents. And I say we, it's our staff that does it. I don't do any, it's the hardworking staff that does that. Connecticut Home Care Program for Elders, along with Medicare and Medicaid, helps residents stay there and not go into nursing homes. So that's where a lot of the assisted living comes in. We've got several nutrition programs there. So that's, the Conservation District, they helped us with a water garden?
Yes.
Yeah, water garden. And the Community Gardens Association brings fresh vegetables in the summer. And that's all arranged by our staff. It reaches out for that, so. Anyway, okay, so now if we can go on to slide 10. Perfect. So as we said earlier, our mission is not just to operate housing, but develop new housing as well. We are all aware that there is a desperate need for affordable housing in Groton. We currently have a 2.5-year wait list for a GHA apartment. So this is what we're doing about it. Currently, we have 3 projects on our radar. One is to develop 51 new affordable apartments on property we own adjacent to Grasso Gardens. Another is the complete rehab of Grasso Gardens, and the third is to potentially add 24 additional low and moderate age restricted apartments at Grasso. For the 51 new affordable apartments, we have a design for the building, and in conjunction with the town, we are proceeding with a site plan and zoning application. This project will be partially funded by $3.5 million from a challenge grant that the town recently received from the state, Groundbreaking should occur in the fourth quarter of this year. For the Grasso rehab project, we have engaged an architect and are proceeding with several design alternatives based on partial or total demolition. Our goal is to achieve a New England Village look and a drastically reduced carbon footprint, but we may have to cut features to meet the budget. We'll know in May. This project will be funded by GHA bonds and potentially some funding from the DOH and will break ground next year. Third, we are planning for a number of new age-restricted apartments at Grasso. The town is applying for a grant, and if awarded, a portion of it will be used to help finance these units. If the funding comes through, this will start mid to late 2024. Beyond that, we continue to work with the town on other housing opportunities. This includes workforce housing and cottage communities, which fit nicely on former school properties. The picture on this slide is an example of a cottage community home that's built around a common area, that green. The fence gives some privacy and a front porch for socialization. And you have 1.5 stories, bedroom, office on the second floor. These became very popular in the Pacific Northwest. So with that run through, now turn it over to our Executive Director, Rob Capoletti, who
I'm going to try to, in 4 slides in a few minutes, share with you my 20 years of experience on how to get these projects funded. So I'm going to try to be really quick, if you don't mind. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. There's generally 4 styles or types of projects that we are able to build. They're low-income housing, which are deeply subsidized units that generally have a good portion of the funds that come in are from state or federal funds that are grants. The reason why they're grants because there's such low income that the property doesn't provide enough income to maintain the property or to build the property or pay a mortgage, so the funds have to come from other sources. Affordable housing is another style that we can build, and that is where people who live there earn up to it, to qualify, earn up to 80% of the area median income, and they can pay a variety of rents from generally low income, some smaller number of units, smaller number of units are in the same development, as a majority of the units are higher income units, but still under the 80% of AMI, which is your working class folks. Mixed use combines a combination of commercial, retail, and residential, or any variation of that. And that's done to create more of a dense population, providing a variety of amenities, storefronts, office space, workspace, and then residential, of course, so that people don't have to travel far, go far. They can walk out their door and go to work, or go to the bank, or go to the grocery store. And that also is mixed income, which could also be mixed use, mixed income, where you have a variety of income levels living in a larger community. Usually, nowadays you're seeing stuff around 100, 150 units. You can see smaller projects that are like 30, 40 units, but using this type of subsidy layering, it's very difficult to go smaller than that. Very rarely will you see 10 or 15 units. It's hard to fund those projects. And as you heard Nancy and Bob talk about before that, is that our projects incorporate most modern day technology and advancements to maximize energy efficiency, curb appeal, and sustainable materials, so that our residents don't have to worry about their heating bills or utility bills, can use the properties that are safe and sanitary and have the most modern conveniences. I want to talk a little bit about the financing methods. Include grants. We talked about deeply subsidized units. Underneath that is a style of grant, the challenge grant, community development grants, or block grants. The town has been very good to the Housing Authority over the years, and every few years helps us with the CBG grant to help improve some of the developments that we have. Sometimes it's windows and doors, sometimes it's modernizing kitchens and baths, and stuff like that, roofing. And as you can see, the buildings are from the 70s. They need that maintenance, and without that, the Housing Authority couldn't survive in some of those developments. We also can get tax credits. 4% and 9% tax credits are the most common here in Connecticut for housing. You'll often hear housing authorities use or developers use low-income housing tax credits. That's where a private equity investor buys tax credits, gives that money to the development to build those units, and in exchange, gets 10 years of a certain dollar amount of tax credits. That's great because it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. Also, there's a new bill, which we're very excited about, the IRA, or Inflation Reduction Act bill, that has literally billions of dollars of incentives for new development, including energy incentives, housing authority, housing development incentives, community development incentives. So we are right now struggling to learn and catch up on those 500 or 600 page document of how we can use those tax credits and the IRA funds to build new development in the town of Groton. What's really interesting about that, it's the first time in about 30 years that instead of selling the tax credit to a private equity investor, a nonprofit or housing authority can go to the federal government and ask for those funds be given in a check to pay for the development, as opposed to going out and borrowing the money, finding an equity investor to invest those tax credits. And think about it, the government now can give us that tax credit in a dollar for dollar credit, as opposed to trying to sell it to an investor who usually gives it between 85 to 95 cents on the dollar. So it costs us money to do that. Here we're going to be able to benefit for a dollar for dollar credit. That's really exciting for us for the first time in many, many years. That's going to be out there. Of course, the ruling hasn't been out there on how to do it yet. The laws are there, but now we're learning how to do it. So I've been struggling with that for a long, and we can't find any consultants who know the bill well enough right now, because the rules haven't been placed in service yet. Also, there's some unusual things that people don't realize. The Department of Agriculture for small municipalities has money available for workforce housing and development of jobs. Very exciting for a town like Groton, because we can apply for funding that's sitting there that nobody really uses. So we're working on trying to do that. And then other parts of this are state-sponsored housing portfolio, which is called SSHP, money from Department of Housing, granted to our moderate income developments to help us subsidy layer those funds to get other funds to match those and try to support these very costly developments. And then, of course, you heard of the American Rescue Plan funds, and then also private investors and bank loans. So where we can pool those tax credits together and other incentives together, the gap, we can now go to a lender or an investor or a local bank and say, hey, we can build 90% of this building off of tax credits and grant money, but we have a 10% gap. Can you help us fund that? And the local banking community and other private investors get what's called Community Reinvestment Act credits. So they are apt to commit some funds to us to help us do that. Now, it's not free money. We have to pay it back. So that's really important to understand. Why use the GHA versus private developers? Why the housing authority? Well, it's probably obvious to many people, but I like to say it anyway. Because our board is from the community. Our residents live in the community. We have a vested interest and stake in developing nice communities wherever we can in the development, where private developers struggle with that. The funds that we make go back into the town, the neighborhood, the units, the families that we serve. And from social services, as you heard Nancy talk about, the grant that we have, a resident service coordinator, doesn't cover all of the resident service coordinator. So we have to raise money for that. And this is ways to do that. And those services are very important to, particularly as our families age, they need more and more services. And we really want people to be able to stay in their homes, instead of going into facilities where those facilities limit their mobility, limit their access to families. They're kind of trapped in a way. Here's a way that people can stay in their home and stay in their community and have a vested interest in their community and staying there. I mentioned the money stays in the community, but also we can reinvest in other projects. And that could be, and I saw it in your audit, they talked about public and private programs or public partnerships. We would love to do that. In fact, I've been doing that for many years with the town, with the CBG grants and other grants that the town supports for the Housing Authority. But we can do that on a much larger scale now because the funding from the federal government is there. And together with the town and the Housing Authority and support of the council, we can start applying for those grants and bring that money to Groton to do more for the communities. With any projects of the size of ours, we create jobs in the town, permanent jobs and construction jobs. But think about it, if we're putting, our projects are very expensive, so I don't want to alarm you. It's expensive because we're putting the best into it, but also, like the town projects, we have to use Davis-Bacon wage rates or prevailing wage, so it gets a little expensive, but that money goes back into the community, into the workers, the contractors that come in, that live and work in the community, and spend that money back in the community. So it's not wasted funds. I'm sorry? Oh, right, the new one that we just did.
Right.
So the new project that we just did, we built 18 units. We knocked down the old ones, built new and doubled the size of those units, but it was $4 million. $4 million for 18 units. That's $289,000 per unit. And we already own the land. So it is a little expensive, but those buildings will now last 100 years instead of just 50 years. I don't know if you noticed, but the roof on those buildings was solar shingles, not solar panels on a roof. So they'll last 100 years as well. So it's really important that we explain that to people. Say, why does it cost so much? Well, this is going to last much longer than the traditional construction that Housing Authority is used to do. And the reason why we're doing that is because we know that with this money here now, we can access development funds, but operation funds or capital funds to keep improving those properties is very difficult to get. That's another one of my asks for the town, if you can help us with those. And then we also can do other things for the town. We have the ability to create large developments, redevelop downtowns, take old municipal buildings, put them back in service, change the use of those buildings, where other developers can't do that because they want to make a profit, and we put that money back into the project. But we also can do things like create sustainable energy incentives and projects that the town could either own or partner with us. For example, geothermal fields district-wide, solar fields or solar on our buildings, cogeneration or turbines. And we can build those into our projects, and because we're a quasi-municipality with the town, we can share that energy with the town and reduce your liability on utility expenses. We can share with the schools, we can share with the town hall, we can share with other municipal buildings, and we can share with the lights for the streets. So it depends on the size of the project and what we're putting into it. And a lot of those energy incentives with this IRA bill are almost free if we put it together properly. At least what I'm reading right now. But it does come with a lot of brain damage to put those packages together. And that's my last little note there. It's easier to develop vacant town-owned property because we're partners already. We've been partnering for 50 years, as you heard Bob talk about. We have a vested interest and a stake in making the town a better place to live. And that's really important to our board and to our residents, because our residents take pride in where they live, and our board takes pride in encouraging the residents to continue to take pride and continue to do more development and in the stake of the town. So are there any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation.
Sorry, I tried to do that really fast.
Oh, you did a great job. Thank you for that. Any questions from the council? Council Bordelon?
Thank you. This is definitely something near and dear to me, especially after seeing the study and just dealing with the folks at Branford Manor and Grasso Gardens and our community at large, the need for affordable housing. One of the models that was mentioned that's so important in here, in my opinion, is that mixed concept, mixed income. We want to move away from the concept of, oh, I know where you live, that's low income. People that I know and I speak to from Branford, everyone knows that Branford Manor is a low income complex. And folks that live there and children, overwhelmingly during COVID, when they were taking pictures with their graduation out in front of their home, there were people that were saying that they could tell that some children had to expose where they live. When they go to school, they didn't have to say. They were like their peers. So it's so important that we look at that mixed income ability for the integrity and well-being of the future generations. It should not be a block community. You know, you should know what I make, he should know what I make, I should know what he makes. And when you offer that style of housing, you allow the community to help each other. Someone that might be higher income might be able to provide a support to the lower income and vice versa. There's been this model out west which is used, so I really, really support that model and concept. My first question is, the housing that you currently have, does any of them allow children?
So right now, we only have senior and young disabled housing, but we are planning to build 2-bedroom units, and as we start working on that, there will be some families that will be allowed to.
Right.
But they can have grandchildren visit,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Grandchildren can visit and stay overnight, and a couple of weeks.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and a lot of
Yeah.
our residents have grandchildren they take care of during the daytime when their parents are working.
Right, thank you. So looking at that model, when they look at affordable housing, one of the models, or one of the things I'm reading, they said we meet the threshold, but what we don't meet, in my opinion, is the threshold for affordable housing for women and children. And so I really encourage that expansion in that area, as well as senior housing, which we're lacking. We have, the baby boomers are getting older, and like you said, they're needing to downsize. We need that cottage-style village housing. I remember speaking to you guys at one point, looking at your model for some of the old school properties and having that village concept. I believe you guys were bidding for the oral school as well. I remember that. And the concept was that village model, which a lot of our senior people or widowed women or men are trying to downsize, to that affordability concept. So I'm really intrigued, and again, I think that we need more affordable housing. I know a lot of our planners talked about EB and the great, we need all of this. They're all going to age. Where are they going to live after? It takes one person to fall into a disability or hardship and they become on a fixed income. We're all a paycheck away from needing support or services, let it be a medical disability. So I just can't say enough great things about this, and I look to seek and hope that you guys bring in some affordable housing for women and children in light of the Brantford Manor problems there. And definitely in Grasso Gardens, a lot of constituents have reached out to me and said, these conditions are getting to be, they're old. And we need to put our money where we're concerned. We can seek developers for these large, affordable McMansion property that are $3,000 and $4,000, but we have to have a balance. We can't have all of that. And we have a good amount of low income. But one of the things that they talked about is we do not have quality stock of housing that's in the newer level in our single-family homes in the higher level incomes. What we don't have in the lower income level is a quality housing because the money is not being put there. So you have my support, and I look forward to seeing where we can go with this. And I will speak on my second turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McBride?
Great presentation, thank you. I just had one comment. The last 4 or 5 slides that you spoke about weren't in our packets, if you could just forward them to the town manager so we could see them, that'd be great.
They came in late.
Yeah, no, that's fine, just so we can have it for future reference, but great presentation, thank you.
Thank you,
I
Councilor
just
Jones.
received them, I'll forward it to you.
Thank you, Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much, and thank you for what you do for the town of Groton. It's really great that we have this. You talk a little bit about you have a wait list of 2.5 years. Can you just put that in numbers of how many people, if you're able to say, how many people that you are on that list?
24 on the wait
24.
list. So the 24th person is the 2.5-year person.
It's at the 2.5 years, so it's like 10%, it's like 25%, it's like 12% or something of the staff, of the residents that you have, there's that much demand for it. How do we compare to other towns of our size? Are we comparable?
We're relatively, we're like Stonington, we're the same size as Stonington, but nothing like a major city, nothing. Like New Haven, Hartford, right? Right.
So we're a small housing authority, and because the housing authority for many years was just maintaining the status quo, and that was kind of traditional for housing authorities of this size. But now that the funding has opened up and the need for affordable mixed income, mixed use development is out there, and the private developers, as you see the interest rate going up, private developers are starting to get very nervous if you've been watching what's going on in the community. So it's even a better opportunity now for the municipalities to come in with the housing authorities and create these affordable mixed use developments that have a very deep root in the community themselves. So this is an opportunity for us to take advantage of these federal funding. It's about 5 or 6 years they usually open up those windows, and then they go away for years.
I just want to say also that we are so fortunate to have Rob as our executive director. He has, if you ever have a chance to go and visit him in Meriden, he has created an amazing, amazing transformation in Meriden. And he's doing the same thing here with us. And I just hope that we can continue our relationship with him because he's so attuned to everything that's going on at the state level and funding, and also gets very excited about housing for the elderly and disabled and for moderate income, low income, everything. We just are thrilled to have him, so I hope you support him as well.
I didn't even have to ask her to say that.
That's a little commercial.
You haven't built anything for quite a while, but you just recently, in 2021, you upgraded and built a lot of new units, and you have a lot of stuff now in the,
Yeah.
sort of in the pipeline. What changed in the world that now allows us to build more, or why are we suddenly at this time building, and we couldn't for such a long
I
time?
think it's because we found Rob. He's the one who has really brought
We've
everything.
changed our business model from what it used to be. Yeah, it used to be maintenance for below those many years. You just maintain the properties, don't grow anything, don't build new. We changed that.
And the state government has also put out, through Department of Housing and CHFA, more available funds out there in forms of grants, tax credits, and the energy world on the federal and state level has put out all these different kinds of incentives. So it used to cost us so much, we can get 30-40% of the construction cost of an energy efficient building back in tax credits, or as I said earlier, through this new bill, in a check back to pay for the development. There's still not money out there to pay for operations, so we have to build these things to last. Very little maintenance, very little energy use, long-lasting equipment and appliances. So we spend the extra bucks to get that, but we also get the tax credits back to allow us to do it. So that's really the difference now, is that there's money available from the federal and state government and other investors that will allow us to build at that level. Now, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to the banking issue that just happened in Silicon Valley Bank. Those kind of activities impact the private investor world, and it trickles down through the government funding as well, because people are buying tax credits. This IRA bill will help relieve that a little bit, because now it's money back to a housing authority or a nonprofit that we don't have to go out and sell the tax credit. So the fact that the bank system is struggling with those kind of activities, it may not impact the newer developments as much because the federal government has stepped in with these incentives.
So it's a recognition on the part of state and federal that this kind of housing is needed, and they're making funds available to do it. Can you just explain just the definition for me, the workforce, just what that means?
So workforce housing is your entry-level workers all the way up to your middle income earning workers. So actually, you can actually go up to 120% of area median income for affordable housing or workforce housing. We generally stay, because the state funding is limited there, we generally stay between 60 and 80% of the area median income. But that means, you know, a family of four can earn over $100,000 in this area and still live there. The important part about that is that the rents don't go up with the market. So a workforce housing or affordable housing unit, the rents are restricted to not grow with the market, but they're slowly move up as the people who live there earn a little bit more, they pay a little bit more. But it doesn't necessarily go with what's happened in the last 2 years since COVID. The rents have skyrocketed. So this stabilizes the area so that the working class families, individuals, singles, new people into the workforce, people retiring, getting second careers, earning a little less income, can stay in the communities that they wish. Otherwise, they'd have to move out and couldn't afford to live there.
And I guess my last question is, what do you look to us to do to help you? How you come here to present to us?
We have a whole list, but the board has asked me to point out a couple of things. For one, the land that's available that you have trouble with having private developers develop, we can do that. Because we're not making money, and we work with the town hand in hand to figure out what it is that the town in that area wants, and we can go out and get the funds together to do that. So that's one of the things we ask.
Land is really the scarce commodity, you know.
And we can't buy it. We can't go out and spend $3 million to buy 5, 10, 15 acres of land. There's just no way for us to fund something like that. But we can go out with a piece of land and leverage that to get funds to build.
Well, Grasso and Pequot Village were built on donated land. That's what makes it possible to do those.
Do you own that land for that new project?
do.
You already own that land?
Yes.
It just wasn't built on?
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So the other things that we need is development-related fees. So as we're building these developments, things like building fees, permit fees and stuff like that, because those nickel and dime projects, and they're a percentage of the cost of the project. Well, our projects are very expensive, so we're using that money to pay fees, then we can't put it back into the project. So that's really important as well. You know, those fire district fees and other building fee-related fees. Also, the town has municipal employees that are working on grounds, utilities, water, and so that's helpful when you help participate in that. I'm not asking you to pay for it, but help us organize it and guide it and get it to the properties if they're not there. There's something that we have called the pilot payment, and I heard that in your audit report as well. Years ago, before I was there, they changed the pilot payment because they thought it would help the
For the
development
sewer.
for the water and sewer.
Yeah.
And so the housing authority pays those water and sewer bills that are very expensive for our two developments, and those costs keep going up. They didn't realize that we weren't going to be able to get the funding for the tax credit at the time. The former executive director, when she passed, wasn't able to continue that project, so it didn't ever happen. That funding went away, but the housing authority is now burdened with that bill as opposed to, and who pays for that? The income from the residents. So we're spending more money on that than putting back into the project, doing other improvements.
And we want to pay, but if we could do it on a pilot program rather than the fee assessment.
So for the current properties that we have, that would be helpful to help fix that. Going forward, as we build new developments, we can create an income source so that, because it's mixed income, mixed type of developments, that some of those higher income earning apartments or market rate units or commercial retail pay a good portion of that and help the town build their tax base. Plus, all the people that we put in there have vehicles and they pay those taxes to the town. They also pay their other income taxes in the area. So those also help. A lot of people don't know that a housing authority project generates for every $1 we spend, it generates $6 for the community in in-kind kinds of fees. Helps the town, helps the schools, helps the communities. So I hope that helped.
We do get some help in the town now that we appreciate, right? They plow our streets.
Had an
They plow our
easy year
streets,
this year, easy year.
I think if we need IT help, they'll
Right.
help us out. So we do appreciate the help we get.
The town planning department and building department are very helpful for us. They're very understanding of our projects. They help give us advice on what we can do a little bit better. So we have a very good rapport, and that's to John and his team. Really come together when we need them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Casuri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for being here. I felt the slides on your funding sources were really helpful, and I had a question about the Inflation Reduction Act. I understand that you're still trying to learn the rules. Do you have any kind of timeline on when you could foresee being able to actually apply for that program?
So we're in the process of putting that together now, believe it or not. Even though the rules aren't quite clear, we feel that if we get it all together based on what the regs state now, they're going to have to figure it out, right? The feds are going to say, well, we have a program, so we're going to put the applications in. Here it is. How are you going to work it? So the first one might take a little bit longer, but for the new development that we talked about, that building, the building envelope has passive design, so most of that insulation, the doors, the windows, the flooring, the roofing, the siding are all energy efficient. The water and sewer lines that come in are made with materials that are sustainable. The roofing is solar, as well as the geothermal in the ground. So a lot of that can get paid for by that IRA bill.
Great, I'm glad to see that these funding sources are becoming available. My other question was the private investor or the bank loans that you were discussing for, let's say we get 90% of the funding and then you need to have a funding source for that extra 10%. Are those like a low-interest loan that you acquire, or is it a special, you know?
I'm smiling because it should be.
Yeah.
So sometimes smaller banks have a harder time doing that. We
Okay.
generally use the tax credit type of incentive programs to attract the larger banks. The Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citizens, those kind of banks. But Chelsea Groton has come forward and helped us with our first project, the one that we just did at Pequot Village. And they gave us a medium-sized loan for that at a decent rate. And it was the first time that they did it, and they really want to contribute more, but they were also learning with us. So I think that with these other tax credit incentives and Community Reinvestment Act incentives, they could do better than that.
Great, thank you very much.
I also should have mentioned that we also can issue bonds. And so that's how we raise private funds. And it's a different bond than what the city would do. It's not that they go out and borrow money for a municipal project. What happens is the developer comes in and we issue bonds to the developer. They sell those bonds to an equity investor who then gets all the benefits of the project that we have, the tax credits, and they give us a very low rate, and it can go up to 30 years. So they can fluctuate that, say it's an interest-only loan for 30 years, take it out whenever you want, that kind of stuff.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilor Bordelon?
Thank you. My question is with Grosto Gardens to do, you know, to add new units and to give it a facelift. What do you guys need for that?
A lot of money.
So, thanks for asking that. So we need some sort of collaboration and coordination on the new construction piece of that. And then also, there's two grants out there. There's the Community Investment Fund grant, and there's the Challenge grant. And it looks like the state is going to issue more openings to apply for that. If we can do that in collaboration with the town and some of the needs that the town has, I think we have a better chance of getting those funds. And so that's really important to us.
And the fact that you guys are, thinking outside the box and looking down the future and really look at the environment and doing all that, is so important. And decreasing our carbon footprint. So I just really appreciate that moving forward. You're building things that are going to last, and that's so important. I know that you guys had tried to bid on 2 properties in the past in the town. What is it that you need from the town to be more marketable so that you maybe are selected? How can the council help you guys?
Well, one of the things, because we're a quasi-municipality, the town can save the effort of going through the long RFP process, so you don't have to do that. We can go through, we can work together, and the town can say, hey, we have this property, it's not really marketable to a private developer. We'd like to figure out a plan, and this is what we think we want to do with it. Where can we get funding? And together, we can figure that out. What will fit in the area, what we can get funding for, where we need to raise funding, do we have to do bonds, do we have to get another partner in there, a public-private partnership? So those are things, how we can work well together and help those areas.
And just from my understanding of working with folks in my past to just, getting them access to resources in the community, that 24 people that you speak of on that list, it's fair to say that that number might be higher because I've driven folks around to get on these lists and they sometimes don't go on them because of the number.
Right.
So if we actually tally those up, do you guys have any record of the people who just decide not to because they're so overwhelmed?
So it's interesting you say that. A lot of that list is only a small list of, because we only have 2 state moderate developments, they have to qualify very low income under our regulations. So a lot of the people who apply don't qualify, so they don't go on the waiting list. Our website gets quite a few hits of working class families, not just seniors, people 45, 50 coming into the area, single people or husband and wife team or a couple team. They don't qualify for these units and they don't go on our waiting list. So that's probably about the people you're talking about. You're driving them around, and because we did those 2 new projects, we get a lot of calls now about that because they think that it's market rate housing. So we have to explain that. We have to turn those families away. The majority of those families, when we look into it, earn 80% of the AMI and below. So between that 60 and 80%. Our two developments, whether it's moderate income, they don't qualify because they earn too much money to live there.
Right, and you spoke to the sense of wanting to keep residents that are from here. And one of the things I notice is that some folks will shop around to different towns where the lists are lower and try to get in there. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to wait 2.5 years. So if Ledyard said they could get me in a year, you know, the other thing that we're not capturing is the fact that there are a lot of people living above their means in unaffordable housing. And I mean this in a way that they're living in a place because it's clean and modern and it's safe for their kids, and there's not a lot of places that they can bring children, or a lot of seniors in town that are in affordable housing can't bring their cat when their husband dies, or their dog. That's another need. They're human. They should be able to have their pets, right? Is the fact that what happens is the people are living in rental apartments that are 3 times, you know, like more 75% of their income.
Right.
So they're waiting for this workability, you know, homes that you're speaking about to open. Having this variety of low income to moderate income to mixed use housing is so important because it encourages people to advance in the system. So you might have someone who's living in maybe a moderate or low income who gets a workable job at some point and is able to move up into a better unit, and it opens up for someone who's lower. Well, we don't have that stock here, and so we need the variety, which we don't have. And that is something that I think would be great for our town. My question for the town manager: how do we get the housing authority more involved in our process with the town and regularly meeting with us so that we have a working relationship as a town councilor? How do we start to set that precedent and experience based on our report that we were given by our economic development?
I mean, that's really up to the council. The staff itself meets with them regularly, and we have the relationship, but, I mean, if the town council wants to have a liaison to them or put them on every so many months onto the agenda, or whenever they, I mean, obviously, whenever they have something going on, they tell me and they get put on the agenda, so.
We will communicate with
Yeah.
you, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
we do have
whenever
a
you have
great-
anything, let me know.
We have a great relationship with the planning department.
Yeah.
Right, but it would be great to have some type of updates coming to us, you know, in a more frequent basis. That way we are knowing exactly what your needs are and vice versa. So would that have to be a referral, John, or?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing more. And just to close my comment, if I may, Mayor, just to end my sentence.
You have 2 seconds.
Thank you, is to have that connectability with a council or a liaison. It makes it more approachable, and it's not just an annual or once or when something's coming up. We'll know more about what's going on. So it'd be nice to have that, something set up so that we have our
And
fingers.
you're welcome to come to board
Absolutely.
meetings, like I said, as well.
Yes.
You'll learn a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Counselor Parker?
Just a question, if you built mixed use, does that change your bylaws? Do you have to change anything? I know you said you're under state legislation, so, of course, your mission statement, I don't see a copy of a bylaws or anything. So,
Right. We do have bylaws, yeah. The last updated, I think, was 1990, and we are currently revising them.
okay, so you would have to revise them if you started doing mixed use, or you don't?
No, we wouldn't, because the bylaws really act more as a affordable housing and developer, community development agency when they wrote those years ago. So, in fact, the Housing Authority used to be called the Groton Community Development Agency. We found documents from the 70s and 80s that somewhere that name went away. Well, couldn't figure out how, but, so we don't have to change the bylaws to answer your question. We can do all this kind of development, but we also don't do it independently. We do it with partners. We bring people in to help us do that. This is it. You see this staff, or the board, myself, and a property manager. So we bring people in to help us, community people who are in the know.
When you talk about bylaws, you mean like your rules?
Some, yes.
Yeah, the bylaws that keep us.
Yeah, they're under revision now.
Okay. Second, well, another question is, you're saying low to moderate income for 30,000 to 52,000, but you change it, will you be able to increase the dollar amount? Do you guys go based on the federal guidelines or state guidelines only?
So that dollar amount is because of the size of our units, based on 1 or 2 person households. If we had family units, which we hope to build soon, those family units, the income increases with the size of the family. So yes.
Yeah, just so people can hear that. I knew that, but
Oh, okay.
people have to hear
Thank
it
you.
too. You're anticipating you would like to see, have mixed use by when? Or if you can find the property? Is that what I'm hearing?
So yes, finding the property is very important. Again, we can't afford to buy the property, or we don't have cash to buy land, but we do have the access to get funding if the land was available. And so if the town had land that they were interested in developing, even smaller projects, we can do like Nancy was talking about, pocket neighborhoods, small little villages. We can do home ownership, so we can build development and do the infrastructure and build 1 or 2 units, and then as people are interested, we can sell those units and build more. So it doesn't have to be a typical traditional, you have to build a development, people have to rent there. We can do home ownership, and we can put out mortgages for that. We can, bond fund those things.
And that is my dream. Before I retire here, I would love to see pocket neighborhoods develop on small school properties or vacant properties where people who want to downsize or young families who are just starting out want to own a home. And so we also have a tax base, a tax income for the town. So I just envision just a small cluster of lovely little homes around a town green with lots of trees, of course, and as one of our developments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a point of information.
What's your point of information?
For the town manager, how do we, let me make sure I'm saying it as a question, coordinate and start talking about what properties and how they fit into our tapestry?
Well, part of that, are you making allowances for that is through your property reuse committee with the policy? And I think it'd be great to work directly with them.
Thank you.
Councilor Franco?
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And thanks for the update. So can you just explain to me, the mixed income you said was usually you have to build a large development to do that. Is that what you were saying?
Larger, like 54 units, 50 units or more, because you have to be, what you're really doing is you're making a very careful balance of higher rental units to lower rental units to afford the mortgage.
Okay, I just didn't know when you said large, what was the definition of large?
It's generally 50 or 50
500
units or
units,
bigger.
50 units?
50.
Okay.
Yeah, 50 or larger.
Okay. So the cottage communities at the schools, I love the idea. I love cottage homes, the small ones. I dream of living in one myself.
We can design it for you.
So as it's been asked, how can we help you? So I think we have helped a bit in the ARPA funding to help with the sewers and earmarking some money for sewers. And I'm sure that you're going to have talks with John Bird about all the ins and outs of that and the timeline of how that funding would come through if, when and if it's released as contingency funds. Also, it's been discussed about town land to develop. And so my question is, I know that you applied to put a development in at the Mystic Oral School, and the developer that did go there has seemed to have fallen through. And I was wondering if by any chance you have gone back to the state and asked for a second chance on that property.
We have not officially gone back to the state and asked for a second chance, but we have asked what's happening with it. And we haven't really gotten clear answers on that yet, but I know that the state is revising or reconsidering that property and what they're going to do next. We don't know. But we certainly would be interested in doing something there.
Okay. And what other town land do you think would be viable to one of your cottage-style communities?
What properties?
Yeah, which properties?
Well,
What is your dream properties? Please share.
Any of the schools mainly that have utilities, paved roads,
Which one?
Noank, the Noank school property.
Noank school property.
SB
Can you
Butler.
just a moment? There's another counselor that keeps speaking, and I can hear her, and it's very distracting.
Please do not speak unless you have the floor. Thank you, Councilor Franco, you have the floor.
I am sorry, continue.
So,
So knowing school property,
Just as a thought, yeah.
Any others?
And SB Butler, Pleasant Valley, where you have roads, you have utilities, you have water, sewer. You do have, in some of those other places, you still have the buildings up with contamination has to be dealt with.
But you essentially have a neighborhood, to build
Yeah.
a neighborhood in.
Right.
Which is perfect.
All right, I'm writing down your notes. And if, by any chance, if you do hear back from the state, and if you're persistent in your trying to get the Mystic Girl School property, and you do happen to hear back from the state, I would love to hear their response to you. That would be wonderful.
Thank you.
And I am also a large proponent of, affordable housing, and as I have stated on previous, visits that you've come here, that my grandmother had lived in Grasso Gardens. That was her last home. So I know what it means to people, and when you're on an extremely fixed income, and what it really means for somebody to have a home of their own in their later years. And it was a blessing for our family to be able to have her live there. So I thank you for all that you do, and I truly appreciate it. And I will help you in any ways that I can. So you are welcome to call on me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Councilor Westervelt?
I'm just curious about the AMI and the earnings capabilities of the people that come to you for housing. Do military pensions play into that, or is it they're just strictly their income?
So based on the income, so a pension would count based on their income and family size for the size of the unit that we have. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you for your presentation. We look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask for a 5-minute recess?
Sure. We'll be back at 9:05.
No, just come up with that one.
Oh, yeah, but that's what's in there.
I know, but you probably should have had these up.
I'll keep in mind just.
Council's back from recess at 9:12, and we are on to job description updates and additional positions. We throw the motion on the floor. I'll make a motion to recommend a resolution to implement the job description updates for the planning technician and the assistant to the town manager, and the approval of an additional part-time administrative secretary in the town manager's department. So moved.
Second, Franco.
Moved by Melendez, second by Franco.
Hi, good evening, everyone. A couple of things for you. First up is a planning technician job description. This is under the Office of Planning and Development Services. There is already a pre-existing job description in our coffers, so this is really an update, as it says, to bring it to modern standards, what's going on currently in the department, as well as aligning it with existing job descriptions in the department. Was there any questions on that one?
What are we, you said it would go now?
Actually, just the way it works. Do you want to just do
Okay.
them all and then, yeah? together?
Okay, I don't know, if the town manager, do you want to speak to? Okay.
Sure. There had been a referral previously from Councilor Franco to look at staffing needs within the town manager's office. And what I came up with is, I don't want to, when I first arrived, I had both, Lisa was already there, and then we had a assistant to the town manager position. Now, that job description was almost written like a assistant town manager. It wasn't considered the level, but if you look, I think that was that, and I think that's in here, is in the old one, but
Oh, yes.
yeah, they had a lot of authority. So what I'm looking at is promoting Lisa, rewriting the assistant to town manager, to bring it down from where it had been, but be an increase of duties over where the executive assistant is. So it's going to, so it'll be somewhere in between. Lisa would take on some more higher level duties, helping with our IT projects and some other things. And then we'd add a up to 19-hour assistant position to take over some of the things like minutes and other things for Lisa. I'm gearing it for like 15 hours. And I'm looking at duties that could be done remotely, because I think we'll have better chance of finding people who can work remotely and build it into their hours, because we're just not getting applications. So that's kind of where I want to keep it. It's a small change, but it helps. It gets me a little help and get more done.
That's all of them? All right. So any questions? Council Bordelon?
Yep, so on the planning technician, you said that one was already budgeted. What are we currently budgeting for that one?
So this is in anticipation of work that I'll be doing with the union. We have a current staff person who is, I believe, at OA2. So in order for me to partner with the union to reclass her into the correct position, I wanted to make sure that I had an updated job description to move her into.
So what is the current pay range in that position that we've been budgeting for?
I didn't include the current pay range. I listed it as a update to an existing job description because we're not renegotiating the job description with the union, rather making sure that we have an appropriate one for use.
All right, so that one has no changes, just the verbiage.
Correct. It already exists, it's been negotiated with the union that it's an existing position.
Will be a cost increase, though, from the change. Is that correct?
A small one, yes.
Yes.
What was that cost increase?
I didn't bring that here. I brought it as a job description update, so I don't normally include those unless there's a staffing item for here.
Well, I'm just asking, so I guess let me just restate my question. I guess maybe I'm lost too. Today, we're just approving it, we're not, but there would be an increase with it, so we should know the increase. Is that correct, John? So in order to approve it, I just want to know,
I would
is there a
still
change?
have to have the conversation with the union of what that looks like, so we have to negotiate that. I can't speak too much ahead of time to where she would fall on the new scale.
Okay, but, okay, so the town manager, you said there's possibly is an increase.
A small one, yes. But It's hard to say. We're not able to say at this point what it'll be.
Also time. The assistant to the town manager, Lisa, would go up. What are we looking at it as a change in level for that?
It would go, currently, it's considered a level 6. It would go to a 7. The previous assistant to the town manager position was that 8 or was that 9?
I believe it was a 9, so we
I
brought
think
it
it's
down
9.
a couple of.
So rather than keeping it at 9, it'll come down to a 7.
So if I want to look at these as round numbers, taking what the current level 6 has without the assistant and adding someone for 15 hours and moving us up to a 7, what are we looking at for a total increase?
Give me a minute, let me rough it out. Well, let's say we used, for the assistant position, let's say we used all 19 hours.
Yep.
And it's not eligible for benefits, but if we used all the hours, I don't think we would, but worst case scenario.
Yeah.
About 25,000-ish. And for the other one, it's depending on where we place her on the scale. Just, you know, I think you see there's the other scales in there. So, let me see.
I mean, because she might already be
Yeah,
higher than the scale on some levels.
You're probably, let's say in the 5,000 to 6,000 range for that. So you're probably talking 31,000 total for the changes for the department, right around there.
31,000. Thank you, that clarifies my question. Thank you.
Council Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Burt, is this on the page 275 that you listed the range? I'm just confirming that's what you were basing everything on.
Yes, well, for the
For the assistant, and then you have the part-time person in
Yes,
there also.
yes. And when I did that worst case scenario for the assistant, I actually used the highest amount you could pay her, or them, sorry, and them. And I used the $25. It's not likely to be that. I just give you a worst case
Correct.
scenario. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that was my question. Thank you.
Any further discussion, questions? Okay, seeing none. I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, carries unanimously, 9 in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to Transportation Alternative Plan Grant.
We'll just read this out. Right. Motion to recommend a resolution accepting a $936,000 transportation alternative plan grant to appropriate $234,000 from the capital improvement program fund balance, and to authorize the town manager, John Burt, to act on behalf of the town, including executing any and all documents and to perform all acts deemed necessary to carry out the terms of the grant program. So moved.
Second, Bordelon?
Moved by Jones, second by Bordelon. Welcome.
Good evening. Mark Berry, Director of Parks and Recreation. The town is eligible to receive a $936,000 grant, transportation alternative grant. The proposed project would connect Depot Road out to Thomas Road. The Route 1 to Thomas Road project was part of an east-west bikeway that was first to link the city to the town, and it was first identified in the 2004 Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. Community connectivity remains a really high interest among the community. The 2020 Recreational Needs Assessment, community connectivity was one of the highest scoring needs identified. So the original project was proposed in 2019. We came in second behind another community. We received a notice in August that there was going to be additional funding put into this project, and because we scored second in 2019, they wouldn't have to go back out and request bids for projects, that we would get the money. They did update the amount, the cost of the project. Connecticut DOT looked at what the cost would be. The new cost is $1,170,000. It does require a 20% match from the community, and that amount would be $234,000. Now, this is a reimbursable grant, so we'd be paying out a little bit, getting that money back, and continuing to pay out as the project moves along. So my recommendation is that the town match the $234,000 from the capital improvement program fund balance by way of creating a new FYE 2023 CIP.
Thank you. Council Bordelon?
Thank you. This is definitely, I know we approved that other thing, talking about, I don't think it was Councilor Baumgartner's thing to make sure, complete streets. And I think this fits into that, that model. And my question is for Thomas Road, what would that change to the visualization of Thomas Road? What would it add?
Well, it would actually just go to Thomas Road. So right now, you've got the bike lane on Thomas Road. This would connect Depot Road all the way out to Thomas.
And I do think this is important when we look at our carbon footprint, and we, agreed that we're trying to be a more sustainable community. So this also ties into it. And, with the workforce, I mean, this could also help EV, is that correct? Folks that are coming in, that people love to bike in?
Sure. I think the original plan was, in 2004, the bikeway was to try to connect the business community in the city, which would be EB and Pfizer, to the town of Groton.
Right, so that would fit in that, and that also fits into the complete streets model. And, it just starts to, get folks, we're seeing more people utilizing electric bikes and other forms of modes of transportation, and it decreases our carbon footprint. It also makes us a more economically attractable community when you have these types of things for the millennials and the youth and people that are older coming in looking for these types of modes of transportation. So I think this is a great, so we're getting, the two numbers here, we're getting how much in a grant, did you state again?
$936,000.
And then we need to come up with?
234.
To get 936.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate the work and effort that you guys have done to really kind of help our community have a more tractable ways of, having passive and active recreation opportunities and accessibility to our workforce in the city. Connecting that city side is so important.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And it will also, just to point out, it will also make the travel on those roads safer, because you're now going to have a designated bike lane, that's marked so that it's going to be much safer than what exists now, which is no bike lane at all.
And I think it is important on the heels of the Stonington accident, where the gentleman, there's not, a lot of people were saying there wasn't much of a shoulder there, and they lost a resident in a sad way over there. It's so important that you can just be able to leave your house and bike comfortably without feeling like you're going to get run over, and having the safe accessibility to do such. It's important for our health and well-being, and especially during COVID, as a project that people were needing. We saw people out biking and walking and using Paquonic Plains Park more than we ever did during COVID, because they couldn't get into the gym. So this is a great economic driver for our community. Thank you.
Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Berry. So is this both this is a shared path that'll have bikes and walking?
Well, it will be marked as for biking, but you can certainly walk on it also. But it's part of the roadway. What they're going to be doing is adjusting the width of the roadway to allow more space for a bike lane. I think the minimum is 4 feet, and most of these sections are 4 feet or wider, where it's possible. Now, there are some places, like underneath the Amtrak railroad tracks, you're not going to be able to have a bike lane there just because of the physical limits of the bridge. But in most cases, you're going to have at least a 4-foot wide bike path.
So the primary use of this is a bike lane, and then secondary would be walking or wheelchairs or...
Yes,
people
yeah.
doing that.
I would think primarily biking, but, it's certainly where there wasn't sidewalks, because it's really not, it's not ideal for bikes to be riding on the sidewalk, especially if there's pedestrians using it. So in those sections where there wasn't a sidewalk, they could certainly be walking along in the bike path.
And where does this start?
So
Where is its beginning?
it actually starts on Industrial Drive,
Okay.
which is where I believe that's the Amtrak repair building. And so it'll go down to Depot Road where the pump track is going to be going in, and then go down Depot Road, take a left onto Route 1, go across the bridge, and then take another left onto South Road, and kind of go underneath the Amtrak bridge,
Got it. Right.
and then follow along the airport.
Okay.
And then across the railroad tracks again, and then connecting to Depot Road.
And terminates
to
terminates on
Thompson.
Thompson Road, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that has an existing bike path at the...
It does.
At the moment, so they'll just
Yes.
join up and then that
Yes.
continues on.
Yeah.
So, okay. And is this mostly just for marking? Is that what this is? this
Yes, it's going to
grant's
be
for?
mostly marking, yeah,
Okay.
adjusting the sides of the roads.
So there is some road construction stuff that...
Oh, yes, yes, yeah.
And when do you anticipate, if we approve this, when do you anticipate the funds that would come and then sort of starting?
One of the traffic planners at the Southeast Connecticut COG thought that it would be about August before, because there's federal money involved, so it's a process.
So 2024 is when you really...
Yes, yeah,
Begin.
yep.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Counselor Bordelon?
One question on this, is this going to affect any right-of-ways or properties of any owners or anything like that that you see as a hiccup along this path?
No, when VHB originally did the study, I think in 2017, they looked at a number of different options, and we actually had a public hearing in this room. And, they had outlined, I think, 4 different proposals. One of them was to have a separate bike path. But there was a lot of folks that came out, especially the residents of South Road, and said, look, my front step is maybe 12 feet from the road, and, taking 8 feet to put a bike path in puts us really close. So VHB went back and said, the least intrusive, yet try to be as safe as possible, that alternative was to have everything on the road. So to answer your question, no, there isn't going to be taking of any property or anything like that in order to do this.
And has this final presentation kind of gone before the public as a final kind of like, here's the final plan with that new modification that you spoke of?
It's been 3 or 4 years now since we did this. I don't remember if we went back to the, I think we heard what the public said and then found the least impactful alternative.
And we actually have a strict timeline on this. It has to be accepted this month.
Yeah, no, I can respect your timeline. I just am asking for the sake of the people, did this come before them again and it was satisfied based on those new changes?
The changes that were made were based on the information that was provided to us.
Was that provided back? So it's great to take the feedback, but then before you go forward with any construction, usually you say, here's the final plan.
Right.
What do you guys think? Like,
Yeah,
I know in the medical field, I only can speak of that, you don't want to, you cut once, right? So the
Right.
plan is this, but if the plan changes, you got to tell the
Right.
patient.
Yep.
So we don't want to be just cutting up anywhere. If we realize there's a new study to
Right.
test, now you bring back and show them, now this is what we did, how do you guys like this?
Yeah.
So my concern is, did the community aware that, the people that had the concern, did they kind of sign off on this new?
Yeah, I honestly, their expressed concern was the losing of their front yard for a separate bike path. That does not exist now, so the road is not changing, it's not getting any wider, it's not getting any closer to their house. It's just going to be striped differently.
Right, and so my vote tonight would be, that's why I'm asking the questions, my vote would be that you guys had did your homework and this is all set, that's what I'm just asking. So if you guys are comfortable that you fulfilled all those requirements, then I feel comfortable, because I don't have those notes in front of me like you guys would have, as, you know, this is a elected position, and I don't have, you know, like from 2 years ago when you guys have this ready to go before us. I'm just making sure that everything's been satisfied. So those people, have you reached back out to them and said, hey, we're going to go to here, and they said, awesome, that's what I want to hear? Is that?
Yeah, I can't say that.
Do they know that we're still moving forward and that there has been a change?
We did not have another public hearing to say,
Right.
this is version 2, do you want to make more changes?
Right, and it doesn't necessarily imply that a public hearing has to occur. What it implies is that you close that communication loophole. So now they're in limbo thinking, we're going to go up to this point, they didn't like it. They should be re-notified that we're only going to go to here. And that could be by mail, email, I mean, I would think that we'd have their communication. So if I abstain to this, it's not because of the bike path, it's my concern about the due diligence, accessibility, and communication to the constituents. I fully support this, I think we should push it forward, but I'm kind of torn because I don't have them here, and if you don't know, then it's hard for me to answer. I just want to make sure that their thoughts, and this fulfilled their need.
We could certainly get the word out and let them know if they have comments, positive or negative, that we have public comment at the meeting prior to where it would be approved.
That would be actually, because we'll get a second chance of that tonight. So I feel comfortable moving with that, and then on that day, if this happens, then I could change, you know, I can change then if I want by abstaining if I don't feel it was justified. But I do think we should try now to reach back out to those, I don't know if it was 5 or 6 or 10 people. Do you know, Mark?
There was probably close to 30
Right.
folks that showed up.
So,
So I would not just
All
let
spoke
those.
or all together? 30 that
I think
had
there
an
was
issue, or
there
30
was-
altogether?
No, there was 30 people that showed up that we captured their information. but
So not
I don't
necessarily
think,
the issues, yeah.
And maybe also letting them know, put it in the paper. This is you got a grant, I mean, this is big news for Groton, right? A bike path, this is good economic driver.
Sure.
Let's get it in the paper, which is also going to drive those people to come out and speak, but also make the attempt to reach out to them as well. Thank you.
And Mark, we can touch base tomorrow on it if this goes through.
Councilor Franco?
Thank you. So what you're saying is you're not widening any roads?
right,
Is that what you're
we're
saying?
working within the existing roadways.
So there's no widening of the roads, you're just basically painting bike paths, is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yeah.
So on Depot Road, how are you going, like, I know there was discussion on this. Are you putting the bike paths on the outside of where the cars park? Is that what you're going to do?
I believe it shows that the bike lane is, so it's the cars and then the bike lane and then the travel lane.
So honestly, some of these, you
I
cannot,
know
rhyme or
this-
reason of these photographs and like these
Yeah.
diagrams in here, you
I
can't
know
even make
they're
any sense
small.
of them.
Yeah, if you look at number 3, it says parking lane, travel lane, and bike lane.
To be honest with you, I don't even think I can read those words.
Okay. It says parking lane 7 feet, bike lane 6 feet, travel lane 11 feet, travel lane 11 feet, bike lane 5 feet.
Is that on this map?
No, it's on.
Which one, what page?
It's on this page here.
Under this one? Under like the diagram one? What page number is it that we did the
Yep,
pack?
that's it, number 3.
Yes.
Really quick, focus on that. Maybe a little bigger, do I have it a little bigger? Oh, and then, Mark, you want to point it out? You want to take my microphone?
John, can you zoom in a little more at all? There we go. Yeah. That looks over here on the screen here.
Yeah, so that's, it says parking lane 7 feet, bike lane 6 feet, travel lane 11 feet, travel lane 11 feet, bike lane 5 feet.
Let me just ask you, what happens if people park in the bike lane?
That's a great question. Well, I'm not sure why they would want to park outside the parking area. I mean, they're just putting themselves closer to the travel lane, which to me would not be,
No, like on here where you have the bike lane, which is 5 feet next to the, like,
You're saying on the right side.
yeah.
You're saying on the right side.
oh, on this side here.
Yeah.
I mean, there would be signage. If someone chose to park there, I guess the bikers would have to go around them. You know, hopefully common courtesy people would not park there, but that's probably, right.
So on South Road, at some points, it seems like South Road's pretty narrow at times. Where are you going to actually fit the bike lanes? Is it going to be just, it's not going to be just, it's going to be on both sides of the road?
It depends on the section. Like at section 7, you have a 5-foot bike lane, 11-foot travel lane, 11-foot travel lane, and a 5-foot bike lane. So there'd be a bike lane on both sides. And on section 5, you just have the 2 travel lanes.
Now we're going to 5? So
You can zoom in on 7.
And where is section 5 going to be located?
Section 5 is just before the underpass, just before
The
the
underpass?
underpass. 6 is the underpass.
I
Five is-
honestly, these are so small in my packet, I can't even read it.
I can see, you just turn it over just as they're drawn to the,
Just slide to the left.
right there,
Jack.
perfect.
right there?
That's 7.
That's on 7.
And then just keep going that way.
7 is just after the underpass.
Yeah.
This is 7.
Slide to the left, you'll see 6 is the underpass. Yep, there's the underpass.
You see that?
So there'll just be,
Yeah,
there'll
so
just be 2
at
travel.
point 6, there is no bike lane, it's just the two travel lanes.
And then 5 is just before the underpass.
It's 5 to the left.
Yep.
And I recall you did outreach with us before, and, because it worried me that Depot Road, there would be on-street parking on one side of the road that would be lost. It would only be on one side of the street. I did drive down Depot Road, and I had concerns that maybe residents there didn't have driveways to park on their own property, like a driveway to park on. And as I drove down Depot Road, I did notice that I believe all the homes there did have driveways. Was there any concern about that at your meeting, if you can recall any of that discussion about potentially losing some parking on that street?
I honestly, I mean, this was 2017, so it was a while ago that we did it. I'd have to go back and check the meeting notes to see if there was an issue.
All right. Mr. Burt, what are you proposing to do here? A public hearing of some sort? What is your
No, not
idea?
a public hearing. They basically want us to give a general, we're going to do it in the next couple of days. And then we'd have to pass a resolution on the first meeting of the month. So basically, we get the word out there as much as we can and just invite people to come to public comment that night.
Okay, I can agree with that. I think that might be a good idea for people in the neighborhood. I will support this tonight and wait for the response at the town council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Barry, how wide is Thomas Road's bike lane? I believe we did 4, right? I'm just confirming that. Because wouldn't we want to match what we're already doing? because I know there was a serious discussion when we talked about Thomas Road and changing everything.
Yeah, I think Thomas Road is maybe 4.
Four.
I
I
believe
mean,
it's 4. and
It's
then-
4.
And then we couldn't handle the bridge because of all the work.
But then,
Right.
so wouldn't we want to be consistent, because they'll
That
go
is-
from a
that is the
5
plan,
to
right?
a 4? Because some of these you have as a 5.
Right.
So wouldn't a
I think
4
they're
be-
trying to utilize the
It's
space
safer,
available.
safer.
I mean,
Yeah.
4 is the minimum, so if you can get a 5-foot bike lane or a 6-foot bike lane, that's much safer for bikers and walkers. And
I understand that, but my concern is you start taking away some of the road that's already, some of the roads are narrower, and you're giving them 5. So that's gonna cut into space, so there's some vehicles nowadays are a little bit wider, and you're traveling one way, or 2 cars, then you got bikes on either side, and there's such a little space. So I'm just wondering if we can just be consistent on how much we're doing. If we're gonna have a 4-foot one in one area, and then 5 in another, two bikes going at the same time, yeah, then most of them do it. But they'll come down to Thomas Road, sometimes 3, and they're taking over the road. And we have to move over, and Thomas Road does not have that much space, because you can end up in the water if you drive correctly. If you're doing it, believe me, it's happened. Not in the water, but close, that where another car's coming, you're trying not to hit the car and pass over the double yellow lines, because you have 3 bicyclists going down the road at the same time.
I think we should always shoot for the safest option.
Right.
That space just keeps, it's a visual reference so the cars don't cross over.
But
Yeah.
they do end up crossing over because bicyclists are going down.
Well, they're less likely to do it at 5 feet than they would at 4, though, in terms of the visual. You know.
are you talking about the drivers or the bikers?
The bikers are going down, because it's a 2-step thing, because the drivers can be as safe as they can be, but the bicyclists have to be just as safe. So if they're riding down the road, 3 or 4 bikes at a time, which they tend to do sometimes, you have to move, the cars have to move over to make sure, because technically, you're supposed to allow them the space to ride by.
Right.
But if there's another vehicle coming down the road and you've already crossed and they're over into your 5 feet or go beyond the 5 feet, we have a problem. So I just want to see if we can be consistent on everything we're doing.
So I bike every single weekend, and I can tell you when a car is approaching from the back, bikers pull over. They
I do not.
Well,
Not recently.
I'm just sharing
Yeah.
my experience.
I'm-
I pull over, the guys that I ride with pull over, because we know there's a lot of irresponsible drivers out on the road.
No,
And
Thomas Road, they don't pull over. I go there
I
every day, but
drive down Thomas Road a lot, so
Right.
I'm
I
just
think,
saying.
though, if, let's say that road is wide enough to accommodate another foot on each side, I would love to do it. You want as wide as possible. As long as it can accommodate the basic cars, then you want as wide as possible. That's going to minimize the danger.
And
That-
a narrower road should be a traffic calming device.
Yeah, I choose to be
If the
safer.
if the road is narrower,
It is, it's a proven safety mechanism.
yeah.
Okay. I'm just asking if we're, just be consistent if we're going to do that, but if you guys want it wider, then I'll go with the plan.
I think wherever we
But-
could do it in the future, we'd always want to try to make it consistent at 5.
Or
Or
at
6
least,
even.
yeah, I mean, the minimum is 4.
Right, that's the minimum, yeah, for safety.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Counselor Gasiri?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Berry, can you just go over on page 296, we have a little ranking matrix. Can you just go over like the different alternatives that are listed here?
296.
Yeah. So VHB looked at 4 different options and had a matrix of, the impact of some of these, the impact criteria of some of these different elements. So, alternative 1 was on-road bike lanes, Alternative 1A was on-road bike lanes with Paquonic River Walkway. Alternative 2 was a 10-foot wide shared use side path, and then alternative 3 was a 10-foot wide shared use side path with on-road bike lanes and Paquonic River Walkway. And they looked at the impact of doing all of these different alternatives, and they ranked each one of those, and what they determined was doing the on-road bike lanes, which is what we've proposed this evening, scored the highest. It had the least impact. If you look at alternative 3, there was 22 property stripe takings, 14 property impacts. So, that's less desirable than, the on-road bike lanes. So they looked at all of these different things, all the different criteria, and like I said, they ranked them, and the on-road bike path was the best alternative.
Great, and so this matrix really shows us what kind of impacts, I mean, there's different categories here. There's relocation impacts and right-of-way acquisition. There's noise impacts, there's floodplain impacts, there's hazardous waste generator sites. So we can really now tell the public what the impact is going to be with the approval of these bike paths, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Councilor Franco?
Just very quickly, I know what you're talking about, Councilor Parker. And I also recall when Mr. Schneider was here and we put the bike path on Thomas Road, that I believe Mr. Schneider thought we could do the lanes narrower and make the bike paths wider. And then he found out, because it has something to do with where the center of the road is and how far out the lanes have to be, and then what's left over. And I think that's where he ended up sort of stuck, where he had 4 feet on both sides. That was the best, I think, at the moment we could do, but we had actually intended to have it wider. But then some issues arose that this was the best way forward. At least that's my recollection from way back then. So just a little history there on that. But thank you, appreciate it.
I just had a clarifying question.
Okay, just make sure it's a question.
Yeah. The map that you showed in like 7, my quick question is, there's the road lane, there's the bike lane, and there's the parking. So I just want to make sure I understand, people parking are going to have to come across the bike lane from the main road to park?
On section...
Slide 7?
No, on section 7, there's a bike lane on both sides of the road.
Maybe it was the other one, the one where there was the parking, there was the bike lane, the driving lane.
Oh, that was probably 3, which is Depot Road.
Yeah, right. So the traffic is, I just want to understand, the traffic's going to come down and have to cross the bike lane to park
Right.
with
Yes.
the oncoming bikes. So is there
That's
going to be any
correct.
sign? Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of signage.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
both vertical and horizontal on the road, and, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstain at this time, and I want to just see what public outreach happens between now and then.
Carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstaining. Board along.
And we'll get the info out pronto.
Thank you. On to town attorney appointment. And you won't put the motion on the floor first because we have to discuss. So, John, could you give some background on this one?
Do we need to do the motion first, or do you want him to discuss?
Well, the motion is blank because we have to.
Yeah, there's 3 possibilities. It's and really what we do is whatever, attorneys have their specialties, and whatever we need at the moment, we bring that in, so
Right.
it's what you think is the best personality fit, really.
That's the update.
Well, okay, so essentially, we had Eileen Duggan, she was a town attorney. She moved on to a different job, she got a different job. And we have to fill that vacancy. We have 3 attorneys who work in the same office as she did. They all work in the same office, they work together, but we have to appoint one of them to be the official town attorney. So we have...
Through the rest of the year, right, per the charter, right?
Right. So we have, yeah, it's just to the end of this term, to the end of this year. Eric Callahan, Richard Cody, and Christy Kelly. I'm sure we've met all of them, we've worked with all of them, so.
And I think all 3 would be great, so.
Okay. So. If you, I mean, if someone wants to throw a motion down, I don't know if you don't have a recommendation
No, I
necessarily.
think they're all
it's
3,
just up to
whoever
the
you're
council.
comfortable with, yeah.
Right.
I mean, you can't go wrong.
Right, okay.
I will make a motion to recommend a resolution appointing Christy Kelly of the firm of Sushman Shapiro, Wool, Brennan, Gray, Greenberg as our PC as town attorney.
Okay, so this is moved by Jones and seconded by Jacome. Okay?
The reason I'm picking Attorney Kelly is I've gotten to know all of these attorneys, and they're all extremely competent, and I think the town has been very well served by all of them. I was very impressed recently with Attorney Kelly when we did some employment issues, or talked about some employment stuff, and just, she was very clear, she answered the questions very directly, she was very personable, I thought represented the issues clearly, so I'm very comfortable with her, and none of these people are, I mean, as you had said, we're not locked into them in terms of services. Whoever's the correct attorney for the time will do the job. We just need somebody that's the official person. So that's why I kind of like her. She just seemed to, she knew what she was doing, and she was extremely competent, so.
Yeah. I would echo everything Councilor Jones just said. We've worked with Attorney Kelly on a lot of our union contracts. I think she's always able to explain things so that someone like me can understand, and I think that's a very important skill. And also, I just say the other 2 attorneys, obviously we've worked with extensively. I think they would be great as well. I could support any that the council wishes to, but I just think that as of right now, my first choice would be Attorney Kelly. Thank you. Councilor Bordelon?
Thank you. I haven't gotten to know Christine Kelly all that well, just a few interactions, but, you know, reading what we have here for a resume, things I'd like to highlight that I thought were things that stood out for me is worked with the Veterans Affairs, worked with the state of Washington, so it's the state, and even though it's a different state, but having that experience to me is very important. I also like that you know, it's very important not to just do the part, but to sit on a board, you know, Board of Governors for Connecticut Bar. So I can commend you for that. You know, you're just, you know, it looks like you, Connecticut Bar recognition. So I just, there's a lot of outside things I'm seeing on here, and I bet you there's more. And I think it's also great to have women as women, you know, continuing the seat as we had a female before. I think it's Women History Month. Let's give it to the woman.
Any further comments? All right, I'm seeing none. So I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously, 9 in favor. All right, so we're on to our last agenda item. It's going to be an executive session. I don't know if there's anything that can be said before.
Do you want to give a little quick brief?
We're going to be discussing some updates on collective bargaining agreements as well as a tentative agreement attorneys with one of the unions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I hereby move that the members of the town council, along with the town manager, John Burt, human resources director, Arnisha Green, and town attorney, Christy Kelly, go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, section 1-202, for the purpose of discussing strategy and/or negotiations with respect to collective bargaining units.
Second.
Moved by Melendez, seconded by Bordelon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? We are in executive session unanimously at 9:57. The council is out of executive session at 10:20. I hereby move that the Town Council Committee of the Whole approve the request for funds necessary to implement the agreement between the town and Groton Telecommunicators Local 5378 IAFF for period July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Melendez, seconded by Jones. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Kasiri, seconded by Franco. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned at 10:21.